You're listening to Well, I Laughed, Part 1 of Prime Time Crime, If the Glove Fits. Hey.
Hi, how's it going?
You?
Good.
I've been deep in the story for the last 48, 72 hours.
And it's one of those really fun stories that you like to get super deep in, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super fun. It's one that I've wanted to do for a really long time, and I am actually so deeply grateful that I because we were supposed to record this episode last week, and I was fully prepared to finish the notes last week and be ready, but I kind of stopped because I didn't want to lose all that knowledge, and so I really finished the notes last night and today, and I completely forgot where I was going with that, so that's fun.
You're just passionate and grateful for the chance to be able to share this story.
Why would you say that about me? I'm not grateful about anything.
Because I'm grateful for everything.
Oh my God. I'm glad I didn't let myself continue researching during that time, because this story could have been 5 hours easy. This is just one of those where there's
With
just
you?
No. This story is maybe going to be longer. I honestly don't know. There's a lot of sections that I was scrolling back through, and I was kind of I can sum that up in a lot less, and it's not as important. So we'll really see how it pans out. But it's another one of those where there's just so much information, and it happened just at the perfect time for everyone to write about it and talk about it. And yeah, so
I kind of a different, almost the exact opposite approach to this week's story. First, I have...
Oh, do you want to tell them your next theme, by the way?
Yeah, actually, do you remember how I worded it?
I think it was just in the dark.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, cool. It just felt a little general, and I was like, did I get more specific? Yeah. Next theme is in the dark, so if you have listener stories, please feel free to submit them, wellilaughdpod@gmail.com or wellilaughed.com. Also, I'm Grant.
I'm Maia.
If you would like to skip all of this and just get to the story Maia has prepared for you, there's chapter notes. Skip right ahead. No hard feelings.
Goodbye.
But I had definitely settled on my topic for tomorrow. And then I was like, but what if it's this? And then I've started to explore that angle a little bit. And I still have the first topic, and that one's going to be good to go. And I can kind of do it. It's based in part of a documentary that I had seen a couple weeks ago anyways. And so it's a lot of the prep work's already there. And then this afternoon at 1 p.m., I was like, wait, what if it's this thing instead? So whatever I choose, I know it's going to be different than what you're going to hear tonight.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm trying to increasingly with my themes corner Grant into doing things I know he doesn't want to do. Because this man is never going to cover true crime.
Nope, never.
Unless I hold something up to his head,
The theme's going to be true crime, and it's going to be so let's talk about the crazy things people say in confession booths.
It's true. And there was a crime.
lot of crimes. By year 5, she's like, true crime that involved murder, parentheses, it's sad.
Derogatory.
Right. Let's talk about the Disney's creator's decision to kill Bambi's mom. I'm never.
You can't land a punch on this guy.
I won't do it. I won't. No, I won't.
I mean, one of these days.
Meanwhile, I'm global conflicts, 1939, 1945. Maya, go.
There was a serial killer, I'm sure, during that time.
Oh, yeah, there was.
Yeah,
his name was Joseph Stalin.
Jesus Christ. My God.
Yeah, well, good. I love that we're bringing different but complementary vibes to the party.
Yeah, everyone kind of knows maybe what to expect.
Speaking of different vibes to the party, so this weekend, we're doing a big old trip up to the mountains, which I'm super excited about. And then, and I love it when this happens in our friend group, because it's kind of like a grass fire. It moves really quick, and it comes out of nowhere.
Someone mentions a plan 3 months prior. Everyone's like, yep. And then the day before, everyone's like, how are you getting there? Are you carpooling? Who's bringing food? What are you doing? What are you staying?
Have you filled out Lydia's Google form yet? You can't do anything until you've filled out Lydia's Google form.
Yep.
Someone 5 days ago, and it might have been my boyfriend, was like, what if we went to Blackhawk the night before? And
that's
that
why
bushfire has then set off.
When are you going up? heading up?
I'm going up Thursday to go to Blackhawk.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know if you were taking any PTO or not.
Yeah, Friday is kind of a teacher work day. It's a teacher work day, but there's meetings we have to go to in which they take attendance, which is so dumb. I mean, they're fully correct. We would absolutely be skipping it if they didn't. But I have to go to that.
Yeah,
so,
no,
I mean,
that's fair.
I don't have to go to it. I had to burn a PTO day, so I won't.
Well, so you won't be there.
Going to it. But yeah, we'll go up Thursday, which is in like 72 hours.
I don't know.
And come back Sunday. So it'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
Yeah.
I got told today at work that the thing that I've been working on, the schedule, is now just like completely in my hands. And he was like, you get to take the keys to this Ferrari. And I went, I'm going to crash it. And he went, I like learning to break things. And I went, quit being so positive. Like,
you have no idea who I have to hang out with tonight. Stop being so warm.
It's so annoying sometimes with these men, you know? I had other things, but what were you going to say? You have things, I'm sure.
I hadn't queued up anything. Kind of felt like we were at the start of the story there.
I have a fucking hilarious story that happened yesterday.
Well, please tell us.
I went to F45 with our dear friend Sophie Lee Sophie.
Yeah.
And I don't go to a ton of the weekend classes. I've started going to the Sunday classes just while I'm doing this like challenge thing for F45. And I knew I wouldn't be able to work out tonight.
Imagine going to F45 and then being like, God, I wish there was a challenge.
I'm lifting the heaviest weights sometimes. Anyway, I was there with Sophie and we got paired together, right? And the workout was such that you're kind of paired with like another group of two and you're kind of swapping between workouts with this other group. And this is kind of a new crowd because I usually don't go on the weekends, so I don't know a lot of them. There is this guy though who, he's an older gentleman and he's wearing like a bright red, like kind of like this athletic, like zip up jacket thing the entire workout, which I find weird, but remember that it's bright red.
Okay.
And we're just going through, we start at the ab section, and he's supposed to be next to me, facing the front of the studio. By set 3, he's facing backwards and like cornering a guy that's behind us to talking about like concerts that they've been to or something. No. And it's so awkward and cringy, but he's not talking to me, so I think it's hilarious. Because every time I look, this guy's closer to the other guy, and the second guy is like keeps moving away. And so then we continue the workout. At some point, we're passing, and this guy turns to me, and he goes, "Your friend is doing so well for being so hungover." Sophie was not hungover.
I was going to say, I don't think that's something Sophie really experiences.
She was not hungover. She had also run 7 miles before the workout, so I was like, yeah, haha, so funny.
You people got to be stopped.
Sophie needs to be stopped.
You people gotta be stopped.
Yeah, Sophie, I think, could trade one of her weekly runs for therapy. I think she might. I don't know what she does.
Someone said in the Discord, Grant, I finally went to an F45 class for the first time, and we are preparing for a war. I don't know which one, but we are preparing for something.
See.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But then we keep going, and I'm like, that's a weird thing. Maybe he's like mixing Sophie up with someone else in the class he had talked to, and then we're at another station, and he passes me again, and he's just like, "You need to get your friend a Bloody Mary." I was like,
she's just already on her second intense workout of the day.
She's also lifting like really pretty heavy. She's like doing really well. And so I go over to Sophie and I'm like, "That man thinks you're hungover." And she went, "I have no idea why." I was thinking maybe they had talked before or something like that. No, nothing. And so I think it's so funny, and I cannot stop giggling for like the entire last pod. And I go up to one of the coaches. I'm like, "I kind of know." And I was like, "That guy in the red jacket thinks Sophie is hungover." And he went, "Yeah, sorry, that's so-and-so. He actually belongs to a different studio, but he's in the area house sitting for his ex-wife for the next 3 months, and he's driving everyone crazy." He always has something to say.
What a tapestry of a life that man lives. Pull one thread and you just...
This man was always lost. He never knew which like exercise he was supposed to go to next. There were multiple times he ended up at our station. I had to be like, "You're over there." And the poor guy who was working out with him like kept like getting into the workout and then looking up and seeing this guy like halfway across the studio and having to go get him and be like, "We're over here." So it's just so fucking funny. At the end, I'm like, I cannot stop laughing. And Sophie's like, this is so misogynistic. And I was like, you're right. Absolutely. I'm holding space for that. This is so funny. What about you? This man just took one look at you and said, get that girl a Bloody Mary.
She's struggling because she's an alcoholic. And it's fun but sad.
There's like literally no fucking reason for any of this. And at the end of the workout, he comes up and he's like, he goes up to Sophie and is like, you did so well. Oh my God. Like, you deserve a Bloody Mary. Like, every time I looked over, you were lifting the heaviest thing.
Can I share too, and this might be because of age, but a Bloody Mary, I kind of have to be in the right mindset.
I do too. I do too. I have to want one.
Yeah, it's a hill to climb, especially if you don't want one.
Especially if you're not hungover too. I feel like they're only anyway.
There's always gonna be another mountain. Always gonna be a Bloody Mary. Thanks. We don't sing enough anymore.
We don't. So we finally end up walking out. I'm like still dying, and this guy is in his car. I'm just gonna paint the picture for you.
Great.
It is parked at like the end of the block, like where the intersection is, parked facing the wrong direction on the side of the street. It is a bright red convertible matching his jacket.
I am divorced.
Yeah, this man is blasting Despacito.
On his way to get a Bloody Mary.
And then I walk past and I think he sees me and he tries to like sing at me. He's like screaming the lyrics of Despacito from his red convertible. And then he just fucking peels away. And I was like, this man, I don't know what.
Okay, I got 3 rapid fire stories.
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off.
For the only thing is, how is he always so lost? How is he misreading people? And how does he have so much confidence in himself to just be spewing that shit? There was literally no indication Sophie was hungover. She didn't look tired. She didn't look like worse for wear. She was literally coming out from a run and still outlifting this man. Anyway.
3 rapid fire stories.
Yes.
The first one is a classic Lydia story that happened this weekend.
Fucking incredible.
She's up in Breckenridge with some of our friends from college, and they're walking out of a store, and she sees her car actively getting a parking ticket.
Oh no!
And she runs over. She goes, "Hey, like, so sorry. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to park here though. Like, the time's like whatever. Blah 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 blah. Why? Can I ask why you're giving me a ticket?" And he goes, "Yeah, ma'am, you're pointed the wrong direction on a one-way." Lydia looks around. According to her, there's like 7 signs that all say one-way. She had like come on the intersection, seen an open spot, and just had like turned onto it. So it's not like she had driven halfway down a one-way. No, the incredible part is she then 18-point turns because, and I quote, because she's telling me the story, "I'm not going to lose my spot. You know, it's Breckenridge. So if I go around the block, someone's going to take it." 18-point turns
so she can
into the parking lot spot.
And hey, she's right.
And then goes up to the parking attendant is like, "Hey, I've fixed the issue now. Can you cancel this parking ticket?" And the guy goes, "Sure." What?
She has so much audacity. It's crazy.
It's tough to see a woman that should have been born a white man, but instead it's a woman.
I always knew Jacob was gay.
He likes them powerful or funny. I'm kidding. Second thing. On Friday night, I went out with my boyfriend, some of his coworkers, and then I brought a friend along, and that friend is Ryan, our friend Ryan, who submitted a story last week for our listener episode. He's a great friend. What was extra fun was it was Friday. We both had our teams competing at debate tournaments the next day. Different debate tournaments, and obviously we coach at different teams. But I was like, "Ryan, come on out. It's so fun." My boyfriend had like a work event, so we didn't really get to like the first bar until like 10 p.m., right?
Yep.
Ryan joins almost instantly. I think he'd been parked in his car for like half hour before.
Oh, Ryan.
Just very much from Kansas, very punctual. And we're out, we're having a good time. At like 11:30, he's like, "I gotta go." And I go, "What are you talking about? We're having so much fun. Like the music's getting better."
Yeah.
Because the deeper into the night you go, the music gets better,
That's
right?
how it is.
Right. And it's not because you drank more. It's because the music's getting better. Admittedly, I'm reaching the point of the evening where it's like, okay, like I am going to stop drinking because I do have responsibilities in the morning, but I'm going to stay out still.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy the conversations.
Yeah.
Maybe we have a little bit of a cigarette moment, whatever.
Love that for you.
And Ryan was like, "I needed to leave 30 minutes ago. Like I have to go home how.
Why?
And I was like, you have fun, girl. Because, he's from Kansas.
Needs to go to Seeps.
Correct. And also, I do feel kind of bad about this one. He had to be on his team's bus like that morning. And my assistant coach was riding our bus. And so I was going to wake up, grab a coffee, get a good shower in, heated seats, drive my happy little butt up to where my team was competing. And so that all happens. He leaves at 11:30. I go home at a different time. That is not
11:30.
That is not 11:30.
Yeah.
Let's just tell you this much. And join the Patreon for some real great color commentary about Friday evening. But it's a good evening when you're getting a slice of pizza at Sliceworks on Colfax, and it's dark out.
That's really true.
Good evening. Yeah. The next morning, I'm driving up to our tournament, right? Because Ryan and I's teams went to 2 different tournaments.
Right.
And I see my little screen come across, a little message from Ryan. And I'm like, la-di-da-di-da, click. And it's 2 messages. First, thank you so much for inviting me last night. It was so fun getting a chance to meet your boyfriend and like his friends and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. Second message, girl, I am never doing that again.
See, I always knew I liked him.
He's great.
That's beautiful.
He's great. So I was like, oh, that's funny. Tournament on Saturday. I did go home. Then on Saturday evening, I was like, I'm a little tired. We'll sleep, whatever. Sunday, and this is the last of the 3 rapid fire stories.
Yes.
We got lunch with our friends Matt and Shelby, who have mentioned a couple times on the pod. We met freshman year of college, and then they're this lovely couple that live in South Dakota and have a baby.
Yes,
and they're the only ones really in our lives that have a baby.
I hear a lot about this baby.
Yeah, it was a new experience for me to be around a 3-year-old.
Yep.
For instance, I saw them right before they headed up to the mountains. We all met at Jacob and Lydia's house, and Jacob left the room and came back 3 minutes later, and we're all stone cold quiet. And he goes, "Hey, what's going on?" And I go, "Bebe punched Shelby in the face." And then Shelby said, "Apologize." And Bebe said, "Sorry, Daddy." And we're all trying really hard not to laugh.
I don't know if you shared that on the Patreon or the episode last week, but it is still very funny.
When did we record last week?
Wednesday?
Oh, so it would have happened that day then. Oh, okay.
Probably,
funny. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then the second one is I found out over the trip they were having a lot of fun, right? Bebe, certainly very entertaining. Maybe at one point did get a hold of Mom's bras and run around the condo swinging it above its head. And when I heard that, I went, oh, okay, so like a typical weekend up in Breckenridge.
Yeah.
Good.
It's not a weekend in Breck if my bra doesn't come off.
It's really not. It's really not.
Yeah.
I have some more fun stories from this weekend, but a lot of them now need to exist behind a paywall.
Okay.
But I got a chance to interview someone on Friday.
Isn't that just the power trip of that?
You have no idea.
Oh, no.
So tune in. Drop $5 just for this month to get the
You can also
story
buy
there.
Individual stories.
Amazing.
For $3.
It's this one. It's a good one. I think you're going to have a great time.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
The last thing. Mm-hmm. Did you see the video of the elementary schooler, I think, or maybe high schooler that punched a guy?
Who doesn't? He was like, "You're going to get in trouble with admin," and he was like, "I don't care."
Yeah.
Punch. Yeah. Yes, I did.
Incredible.
No
Protect
criminal
him
charges filed. I don't know if you saw that today.
Yeah, I did see that today.
Yeah,
it's incredible. If you haven't seen it, just Google kid punches pro ice student or something. And just a freeze frame of him fully fist cocked back. That man, he wasted no time. He also knew exactly what he was doing.
Wasted no time. Didn't mince his
zero
words.
Fucks. Zero fucks.
I'll say this. Someone tweeted out that it was interesting that when the kid was like, "I'm going to punch you," the kid that got punched wasn't like, "Don't" or "That's wrong," but instead was like, "You're going to get in trouble with the system." And the kid was like, "I don't care."
Yeah.
Do not care.
Fucking incredible, dude. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. Okay.
Students, that is not permission to, if you are listening, not permission to start punching people. Stand up for what you believe in. I will have to file paperwork. And that's annoying,
tough.
even if it is even if you are saying it on principle.
He said it, not me. I'm also not your or your guardian. I don't know.
Teacher. I don't own a cat, let alone a 16-year-old from Berlin.
You're still their guardian on like trips and stuff.
Yeah, like of the galaxy or whatever.
Yeah, a guardian of the galaxy for sure.
I watched Eternals last night, and actually, pretty solid movie.
It was pretty okay,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I was pleasantly
Not a
surprised.
superhero movie, but
No,
I
same.
really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's fair. Who's in that movie that's so hot? Prince Charming, the guy that played Prince Charming in the live-action Cinderella.
Kit Harington?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with him.
He was the one without powers, right?
I think so, yeah.
Or are you talking about Rob, who plays
Rob.
Icarus?
I don't remember any of their names. It's been years since I've watched it. I don't know why we're talking about
Well,
this.
it's been hours for me, so I don't...
And the main character, at least in my mind, was, I can't remember her name. That's on me. Well, I just proved I can't remember a man's name.
She's the cool cousin from Crazy Rich Asians.
Yes. Obsessed with her.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
She's incredible. No notes. Okay. So today's story is, I feel like I gave a good little teaser for it at the beginning. Yeah, it's one that I wanted to do for a while. I frankly did not have time to figure out a creative little way to jump into this. So we're just diving straight in.
Okay.
There are going to be some trigger warnings that it's a true crime story. So I will get to those in a moment. But here we go.
All right.
I probably will have questions for you. I just trusted that you probably knew this time and era better than like 40s in Europe or something like that. What I do sometimes.
Okay.
That did not sound good.
Sounds great, Mike. Whatever you say.
Okay. June 12th, 1994. It's in the evening.
Is it because I'm alive during this era? Is that why I know it better?
No. Deeply not, but like in one of the next bullet points, yeah.
Okay.
It's around the evening, June 12th, 1994. Nicole is attending her daughter's dance recital with her entire family, and that includes her sister-in-law, Denise, and her ex-spouse, who is the father of Sydney. And in the middle of the performance, for no real clear reason, it seems her ex-spouse gets like mad at something. He's sitting behind them and he just like gets up and moves and sits somewhere else. And we'll find out more about that later. Nicole, after the dance recital, goes to have dinner with her family. Her ex-spouse is explicitly not invited, which I don't think ex-spouse takes very well. And Nicole and her family end up going to the Brentwood restaurant Mezzaluna, which is where her friend Ron Goldman works as a waiter. Nicole's mother leaves her sunglasses at the restaurant on accident, and Ron offers to stop by Nicole's place after his shift ends to drop them back off for her. Around this time, ex-spouse is coming back to his house, which is not far away from where Nicole lives, and he's kind of mad, and he tells a man who's been staying at like in his house in like a guest house kind of area, Cato, that he can't believe the dress Nicole was wearing to the dance recital. He thinks that it was inappropriate for her age. It was a black halter dress with a black blazer, because that's...
A blazer's on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like... And then I saw a picture of the dress and I was like, bitch, you would not survive today. What are you talking about? Do you have any guesses as to who the ex-spouse is?
None whatsoever. Nicole's our main character. Her daughter or niece was performing.
Daughter.
And niece came with her.
No, her entire family. So I think her direct family, like her mother, her sister-in-law, and then ex-spouse was at the performance.
And then restaurant, and then Nicole went home and ex-spouse went home.
Ex-spouse went home.
Okay.
Yep. They live very close to each other. The ex-spouse is a man by the name of Orenthal James Simpson.
Oh. Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, it's this story.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
What do you know about this story?
There's gonna be a white Bronco at some point in it.
Sure is. There's gonna be two, actually.
Okay. Here's the thing. Still absolutely a tragedy for what is about to befall Nicole.
Yes.
And the story is very complicated.
Very.
But my vibe for this evening is now different than what I thought I was. I thought I was going to find out about a person who I had no idea about and the awful things that happened to them.
No.
Instead, I get to find out the truth behind a John Mulaney sketch, essentially.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I don't have any real notes.
Which is still a tragedy, but
yeah.
It's because I know it's not a new tragedy.
And that's why I think you'll actually find this really fascinating,
Okay.
especially for like kind of the aftermath of what happens and what's still happening. Do you know much about OJ Simpson's like football career?
USC, maybe won the Heisman.
He did. Yeah.
Okay.
That's about all I knew too.
Kind of a little bit in the pros.
He was in the pros for a while. He was the first player to ever run 2,000 yards in a single season.
Right.
So he got that record. It's now been broken, which I feel really good about, actually.
Okay.
It was that record is now held by Eric Dickerson, 2,105 meters, a little over a decade after OJ made his thing. I didn't do a ton of like digging into his football career because frankly I don't give a fuck, and that was going to happen after I did all the crime stuff, which made me even less inclined to learn more about his career. But he was a running back for the Bills. He was known for his exceptional agility and speed despite how tall he was. He was like 6'2", 210 pounds. 4 rushing titles in 5 seasons, 72 to 76. And then, he was the first to run 2,000 yards in a single season and is still by far considered one of the best. He's in the Hall of Fame for football and all this shit. So OJ met Nicole in 1977. OJ has already had a wife by this point. She's not really going to be mentioned. I believe her name was Marguerite. She just didn't come up a ton in this story. OJ meets Nicole in 1977. Nicole is 18 and working as a waitress, and OJ was 30.
Oh.
They get married in 1985, which would be 5 years after OJ retired from football. I'm not 100% clear on why he retired from football. He did get real into acting. That might have had something to do with it. He became like one of the first influencers, but like in TV commercials and stuff and whatever.
How old is Nicole when they get married?
So they meet in 77 when she's 18 and they get married in 85. So that's 8 years. So she's 25. I think, if I do math right, which I don't. OJ, notably, has a lot of white people who love him. A lot of football, like, fans, and just generally football is not necessarily, like, the fans of football are not necessarily defined by race. So he has a lot of white people who love him, and especially at this point, there's still a lot of, like, racial tension, especially in Los Angeles. And so he, at some point when he's talking to Hertz, which would be one of his biggest brand deals he ever did.
The rental car company.
Yes. Yeah. They tell him, as far as advertising is concerned, he was colorless, which is upsetting.
Progressive in the 90s, though.
Very progressive in the 90s. OJ is also quoted at some point saying, "It's an old saying, you're a credit to your race. Well, I want to be a credit to the human race." Again, progressive for the time, problematic, if anything else, in some ways today. A man named Mike Gilbert is OJ's sports agent. He remembers OJ telling him, quote, "My image, what people see of me, is the most important thing I have." We're not going to talk a ton about this, but OJ definitely evaluated his self-worth based off of how many people loved him and how many people saw him and how many people wanted to see him. Mike also then says later, quote, "When you go to a party, there's people that walk in, and I hate the phrase, they light up a room, but some people walk in, and it doesn't matter if they're good looking, attractive, not attractive. They walk into a room, and you notice them, and your eyes follow them, and OJ had that ability."
Funny uggos, rise up. Our time is coming.
Now, to commit crime?
Just to kind of be the light in the room.
I was going to say that's you, but I take it back.
Thank you for assuming I can't commit crime.
Yeah. OJ had the it
I
factor.
would share it on Patreon.
Yeah, you would not shut
funny.
up about it. Yeah.
Speaking of.
So now I'm going to say some of the trigger warnings because one of them is about to come up. But obviously there are going to be 2 deaths in this story. They're going to be pretty brutal. I am going to force Grant to look at some pictures. I'm not going to share those pictures on our social media and on the website. If you want to look, they are not hard to find, but I figured that that's not something you need to see if you don't want to. It is very revealing about the state of mind the person who committed the crime had to have been in at the time. The other warning I'm going to give is for domestic violence. It's going to be something that's present throughout this whole thing. But the first time that I'm going to talk about it is right now. So if you don't want that, skip ahead 30 seconds, a minute maybe. 1985. So I believe this is the year that they get married. on New Year's Eve, Detective Mark Furman is called to the house of OJ and Nicole. OJ is outside crying by their Mercedes convertible with the smashed windshield. And OJ is off to Furman's left holding a baseball bat and looking pissed off. Mark asks Nicole at some point if she would like to make a report. They have a conversation and, I don't know who called the cops. I think Nicole did. Mark asks Nicole if she would like to make a report. And Nicole says, no, I'm fine. I'll be fine. And Mark responds, it's your life. Remember, Mark.
Okay. That's the police officer?
The detective, yeah.
Okay.
OJ and Nicole get married in 85. They have a daughter, Sydney, in 85, and then a son, Justin, in 88. OJ has other kids, I believe, from his first wife. I think at least a daughter and a son. I did not do a ton of fact-finding into them. We'll talk about the daughter, but just so you know, these aren't his only kids. He reportedly regularly abused Nicole, and in 1989, he even pled no contest to a charge of spousal battery. In 1992, Nicole left him and filed for divorce, and so they're split up. But they did try dating again. Like, they had to co-parent together. Like, their kids are pretty young.
Right.
So they're still living really close. I think they still have a ton of contact, and so I think that makes it really probably very hard for Nicole to leave. And Mike, the sports agent, goes on to say even one step further that he thinks OJ did not handle losing her well, and that he felt like he could get her back, if he kept trying, which, I mean, maybe try by not abusing your wife, but that's just me. So we're going to go back to 1994, where we started. Around 9:10, remember, OJ is at his house with his house guest, Cato. He comes home from the dance recital, and he says he's going to go get something to eat. And Cato asks to come with OJ, and OJ begrudgingly agrees. A little background on Cato. He is, I think his name is Brian Kalin.
Okay.
But they call him Cato, Kato. He meets Nicole Brown in December of 1993. And what he thinks is that Nicole kind of feels comfortable around him, particularly because Cato is really good with the kids. Okay. And at some point, Nicole gets a puppy. It's a puppy Akita, and they start thinking of a name. And their kids like their Uncle Cato so much that they want to name their Akita Cato, which I think is very cute. Cato describes Nicole's relationship with OJ as, quote, like an elevator, up and down and up and down and on and off, because they were married and then divorced and then not seeing each other and then dating and then now not seeing each other again and whatever. At some point, Cato is in LA trying to become an actor, and for some reason he is out of a house and needs a place to stay. And OJ has he describes them as bungalows. I don't really know what that means. It's like a guest house. He has kind of 3 of them lined up behind his house. And so he offers one of them to Cato. Another one is lived in by his older daughter, Arnell, at that point.
So we have kind of like an OJ Simpson compound happening
a little
OJ's
bit.
house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Nicole does live I think it's 5 minutes away by car, but still very close. So him and Cato go to McDonald's. They arrive around 9:25 and then are back to the Rockingham Mansion, which is the name of the street the mansion is on, so people will just call it Rockingham. They arrive back to Rockingham around 9:35 p.m. Cato gets out of the car intending to eat the rest of the food inside in the kitchen, and he turns around and sees that OJ has not moved and is still standing outside by his Bentley. And Cato has kind of noticed the entire night that OJ seems
weird.
Off. Yeah.
Okay.
At 10:15 p.m., Pablo Fenivez, it's Fenjves.
Say that again?
Fenjves.
Okay, yeah.
Fenivez. They said it in the documentary and I can't remember. So one of Nicole's neighbors around this time hears the, quote, plaintive wail of a dog. And it's kind of nonstop. But I don't think he does anything about it. Around 10:25, OJ's limo driver for the evening, Alan Park, arrives to OJ's house. And OJ's house has a gate, but a buzzer kind of telephone thing. And he tries ringing the doorbell. No one answers. And he has to call dispatch to let them know that he has arrived, but no one has answered the door yet. So the limo driver arrives around 10:25. Around 10:45, Cato, who is OJ's house guest, is on the phone with his friend in his little bungalow. And he hears a thumping noise on the opposite wall to where his front door is. So I think it's the south wall. And the thumping there's 3 big thumps, and they're so hard that a picture on that wall moves.
Oh, shit.
It's so hard that he thought there was an earthquake.
Oh, okay.
He said to his friend on the phone, "I think we just had an earthquake. Did you feel that?" And the friend goes, "No." And Cato goes, "Okay." He then goes out and sees the limo driver waiting and doesn't let him in or anything, but does ask, "Did we just have an earthquake?" And so Alan Park, the limo driver, ends up staying out there.
This is outside of OJ's house.
Outside of OJ's house. 10:45, there's a witness who sees a white SUV running a red light. This is somewhere in between Nicole and OJ's houses. I don't understand necessarily logistics, but this white SUV runs a red light, somehow ends up like on the median, and then gets pissed off because her car is like blocking him or something like that, and then starts yelling at this woman. Her name is Jill Shively, and the man starts yelling like, "Get the car out of here, move, get out of here, go." And Jill recognizes his voice from a movie she had just seen called A Naked Gun, and she identifies from the voice that man is OJ Simpson.
Okay.
And then somehow the man in the SUV gets out and is able to peel away. Between 10:50 and 10:55, another one of Nicole's neighbors sees Cato the dog by itself barking and howling with what looks like mud on its paws and belly. And another neighbor, I think, sees him while he's walking his own dog and thinks that Cato is a lost dog. And so someone ends up taking him in, and then we'll get to what happens after.
Where are the 2 kids during all of this?
They are at Nicole's, I believe, asleep at this point, yeah.
And this is all happening at Nicole's?
No, this is, so we're kind of going back and forth. We're just going down the timeline as it happens. So anything with Cato the person is happening at OJ's. Anything with Cato the dog is happening around Nicole's place.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where the children are and where Nicole is.
Yes.
Okay.
10:56, Alan Park, the limo driver outside of OJ's house, sees a man he assumes to be OJ entering a mansion. He describes this man as black, 6 foot, 200 pounds, all dark clothing. Shortly after Alan sees this man enter the house, or enter like the property, Alan finally gets a response from the intercom from OJ saying that, "I'll be down in a second. I'm just getting ready."
Okay.
Around 11 o'clock p.m., OJ's limo driver finally sees OJ leave the house for the limo.
So there is a time period where the limo is there and OJ's not answering the phone.
Yes.
Meanwhile, at that time, the SUV thing's happening and neighbors are seeing Cato the dog.
Freaking out.
With mud on its paws.
Yeah.
And the pounding that Pablo heard was...
Cato.
Sorry. Because what about...
Pablo hears the dog wailing.
Okay. And that's at Nicole's complex.
Around.
And then the pounding that Cato, the human, hears is at Simpson's house.
Yes.
Okay.
So Cato comes out to help OJ get his like luggage into the limo and stuff. Cato knew that OJ was going to be leaving that night. And Cato goes to retrieve the last small duffel bag that's on the sidewalk. And OJ says, like, "Don't worry, I'll get it," which Cato remembers being weird.
Sure.
Alan Park then proceeds to drive OJ to LAX for his flight to Chicago, where he was set to appear at a convention for the Hertz rental car company. All right. I think I missed out on what flying before 9/11 was like. Because what do you mean OJ left his house at 11, arrives at 11:30, and is on his flight leaving by 11:45? What?
I don't mean to ruin this for you, but he's also a famous millionaire.
I mean, that's fair.
Don't get me started on TSA now. It was the Bush administration's way of introducing light fascism to us, and we all just willingly go through police state-style border checkpoints every time we want to fly to, like, Panama City Beach to get drunk on frozen banana daiquiris for a weekend. Like, that's a sin or something.
And then everyone's like, every TSA is different. Why can't they just have the same? That's the point, babes.
I think,
that's
honestly,
the whole point.
For me, because flying has never made me nervous. And I think it's because I flew for the first time October 2001. And when that's your experience flying, literally everything you do afterwards is so much less stressful.
Well,
it was like almost like we were so concerned.
Yeah, because didn't you end up going on a trip during that time because flights were so cheap?
No, a non-refundable trip had been booked
pre-attack,
which of course was a tragedy. And also my family was on a fixed income. So focused on terrorism that the actual mechanics of flying were just completely obscure to me as a child.
Yeah, you didn't understand.
Yeah. Well, my brain just was so focused on other things that now I'm like, what are you talking about? No, this isn't scary at all. Sleep. This is sleep time. You're supposed to sleep on a plane.
Yeah, Casey has really ruined that for me. He'll like sit next to me and then look out the window. I somehow always end up over the wing. And he's like, oh, look at that. That wing's really old. Those flaps shouldn't be doing that. And I'm like, do you mind? Like, there is literally no need for you to be commentating like that.
I'm like in third seat. We can go in.
Casey's like, gone. We might die here.
And I'm like, Stroop waffles,
anyone?
Stroop waffles and some ginger ale.
Please.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, fucking incredible. Anyway, so yeah, murder.
So I was going to say, so he flies out quickly.
Yes, he arrives to LAX around 11:30 p.m. And at this point, he asks Alan to go get a sky cap, which I guess is someone who would assist with luggage at the time. And so Alan is now walking away, and there's another witness who is at LAX, and he's at LAX to pick up his wife. And he's kind of the only person there. And he notices that how strange it was that OJ wouldn't let anyone touch this specific duffel bag because he's watching this whole exchange occur with this sky cab.
And this was a time when you could bring a bag to the airport and it isn't being scanned 800 ways.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
You can bring more than 3 ounces of shampoo, 5 ounces or whatever it is. So this man, his name is Skip Junis. He also notes that OJ had a bunch of Louis Vuitton luggage, but the duffel bag he seemed so protective of seemed cheap.
Okay.
He then watches OJ walk over to a nearby trash can and put something in the trash can from the duffel bag. Skip says it looks...
At LAX?
Yes.
Okay.
Skip says it looks like something long wrapped in cloth. And then OJ goes into the terminal. Meanders is the word that Skip used. And then it's 11:45, the flight's taking off to Chicago. I'm like, what? Anyway, that's also the last time we're ever going to hear from Skip. I don't know if that's going to piss anybody else off, but it...
That's the limo driver, Skip?
No, Skip is the guy that just saw OJ put something
just
suspicious.
Random person at the airport. Okay.
Yeah. But
sorry,
he did
there's
report
a lot
it.
of names in this story, so I'm just trying to
you're fine.
And confirming real quick. Okay.
Alan Park will be interviewed.
Okay.
Yeah. So June 13th, 1994. We're now like into the next day, but you know, it's midnight 10, 12:10. Nicole's dog ends up leading neighbors back to Nicole's house. What had happened was one of the neighbors took the dog back to their house, and then another neighbor had offered to walk it to see if the dog knew which house was where was his. And so he led them back to Nicole's house. And when the Akita goes up the walkway to the house, this neighbor says she saw blood coming down from the walkway. And before she even really got a good look at it, she turns and asks whoever was with her to call 911. There's a dead body. So you can see it pretty clearly. I'll show you 2 pictures.
A terrifying moment before I see the picture.
Yeah.
Like a terrifying moment, and you're compounded with like, do you go in there and help? Like, can you save that person? Or is the danger present here with us right now?
Yeah. I think if I had seen that, I would have assumed that they're dead.
Okay.
Yeah. The first 2 are just these 2. This is Kato, one photographed for the New York Times by...
An adorable dog.
Yes, very sweet. Just another picture of Kato. And then there's 2 I'm going to skip to show you later. This is the walkway that she sees.
Oh.
Yeah. That's a lot of blood.
Wow.
Right?
The flowers are so pretty, and the walkway's so nice.
Yeah.
So for something so ominous and awful like that, and it really is like it feels to me like a lot of blood.
Mm-hmm.
Like
it's a lot. Everyone agrees it's a lot of blood.
But it also, like, because it does appear to me, listener, if you haven't seen, I haven't seen any of these photos. Like, this was not something that, like, they taught us in Lincoln Public Schools or that, like, my parents were particularly. It feels like there's footprints in this.
Yes.
Which means that, like, some of this is being tracked out of the house. But there also then seems to be moments where it's been dripping off the person in not small raindrop, but, like, kind of larger quantities. To the idea where the person who walked out of the home with this blood on them, that's a lot of blood on them.
You're catching on to a lot of things. You're seeing a lot of things.
Well, one of my best friends, you might know her, really likes true crime.
Who? Lydia? She doesn't strike me as the type.
She can't keep all the names straight.
Neither can I, honestly. I'm going to forget all of these names by halfway through the story. So at 1:05 a.m., Detective Mark Furman is a detective with the LAPD. He receives a call to report to a murder scene in Brentwood. He has actually just come home from another really long shift. And so his first response is, I'm not on call. Like, he literally just got home. And then the chief or whoever it was that called him said, I want you specifically to handle this case. Still unclear as to why, but maybe it was because the person didn't trust whoever else was the option.
Okay.
I don't know. So by 2:10 a.m., Mark arrives to Brentwood to, they're going to call it the Bundy location, which I kept like getting annoyed and like because it's Ted Bundy, but whatever. Nicole lived off of Bundy Street. Mark arrives in Brentwood to Bundy and speaks to the original officer who arrived at the scene, Robert Risky. There's about someone said around 15. I don't know if that was how many, but there was already officers at the scene starting to process
There's
things.
a significant presence.
Yes.
Okay.
Mark's partner, Ron Phillips. I'm not going to say Ron Phillips because I'm not actually sure if that's the right guy. There was a lot of white men, and they all kind of look the same, and they're all fucking generic-ass names.
LAPD? Yeah.
Yeah, they're all white men. So I got Ron and Brad mixed up, and I don't feel bad about that. Phillips is his last name for sure. Will arrive shortly. First of all, there were 2 children in the house fast asleep, and the police were able to get them out and down to headquarters to get out of the way.
Without exposing them, hopefully, to too much.
Yes, they tried to go out through the back so that they wouldn't see anything. And at this point, it's just a mess. There's no clear cause of death, but the scene is very bloody. And this was me just commenting as I was watching a documentary. They really just be showing this stuff in documentaries now, huh?
They're just showing
not even
the
blurred.
images? Wow, okay.
I'm going to show you some images, but the first image I'm going to show you is blurred, and notably the one I saw was not. Okay. And I was like,
okay.
Trigger warning, I'm going to describe the bodies a little bit. Not going to go into crazy depth. I'm going to show Grant the images. He'll describe to you what he's seeing. But it's a violent crime. It's very clearly a crime of passion. Nicole's body is kind of curled up in the front entryway, just kind of the way she felt. It didn't really look to me like she was in the fetal position. It's just under the overhang of the door, if you can imagine that. And then Ron Goldman's body, was found between some bushes near where the front door was. So if you didn't catch that, because I don't think I really said that. Ron Goldman was her waiter friend at the restaurant she was at that night.
Right.
Nicole's mom accidentally left her sunglasses there, or just her glasses there. Ron says, don't worry, I'll come by after my shift ends to return them. And so that's presumably why he's here. So this is Nicole.
And you want me to describe this as I see it?
Yeah, or describe what you think is.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is outside of the home? Yeah?
Yes, this is outside the front door.
I mean, she's still in the outfit she wore that night.
The black halter dress, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you can tell where some of the blood has been coming from in this walkway.
Yeah.
The steps, the paint, it's all white except for green plants on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she's crumpled up on the floor.
Yeah.
And so then there's Ron in the bushes. I'm not an expert, so I can't tell you exactly, but my assumption would be that he fell backwards or kind of backing onto his side a little bit. Yeah. His body is also crumpled and it's covered in blood.
Yeah. So they had both been stabbed to death is what they will determine later.
I'm struck by how young they both look, too.
They're both pretty young, yeah. I think in their 20s probably. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely know Ron was 24, 25. Oh, my God. Yeah. Both had been stabbed to death. Ron had been stabbed about 30 times, but there was signs of a struggle that he did fight back. But 30 times is
I'll say in the photo you showed, I'm assuming most of it was in the chest area specifically.
I think so, yeah. There is also something that...
His chest is covered in the photo that you see.
Yeah.
I was kind of actually surprised I didn't see more open entry points in the...
There's a photo of one of the entry points, and I mean, I'm not an expert by any means, but from what I've gathered from looking at true crime or hearing about true crime is that if a wound happens post-mortem, it will bleed differently because the blood or the heart is no longer pumping. And so there's nothing to support this because I did literally no research on this part. My assumption would be that some of those cleaner wounds happened afterwards. Ron had died, yeah. This part is a little tough. If you don't want to hear this, skip forward literally 10 seconds. Nicole's neck had been slashed so deep that her head had nearly been severed from her body. Okay. Yeah. This is a violent crime. It was also of note Nicole did not have shoes on and Ron did, which led investigators to believe Nicole was coming from inside the house while Ron had been outside the house.
It was like just arriving.
Just arriving, yeah.
I mean, the assumption is this is happening, what, like around 10:30?
This is around, yeah, if, yes, the crime would have happened around 10:30.
So if Rob Goldman gets off work at 10,
yeah.
He's there by 10:30. So.
Yeah. Yup. Mark has also taken note at this point. He's on the crime scene waiting
Detective Mark.
Yeah, waiting for his partner to show up. He takes note of a stocking cap or like a beanie that's on the side, and then there is a black leather glove. And then he also sees like a white business envelope on the walkway kind of in between-ish where Ron and Nicole are. They also notice a letter inside the front door that had OJ Simpson as the return address. I don't know why they noticed that, but they did. Then they also see that there are bloody footprints leading from the scene of the crime down a walkway to a back gate where they think the perpetrator likely fled. But there's like blood following that entire way. There was one source that said that this indicated to some people that the person who did this knew the area, because if you're just kind of walking by, you can't tell that that gate leads to an escape route, if that makes sense. But yeah, there's blood drops all the way around the house and then literally on the gate. And then there's a bloody fingerprint on the doorknob for the gate, one that Mark sees and is like perfect because that's an incredible fingerprint.
And Nicole, it's a house, not it's an apartment.
Condo is what they describe, but in the pictures it kind of looks more like a townhouse to me.
Okay, and then I hadn't really realized this. The assault happens outside the house. Mm-hmm. I had assumed it had happened inside the house.
Yeah.
It happens outside the home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So 2:30 a.m. At this point, Mark's partner has arrived to the scene, but the LAPD has now just contacted them and said that this case is now under the jurisdiction of the Robbery Homicide Division. So it's no longer yours. So the best thing you can do is now just leave the crime scene, wait for someone from Robbery Homicide to show up and tell you what to do until they can get their own backup and we can relieve you. And so they do that. And that's when Tom Lang and Phil Van Adder of a subdivision called Homicide Specials, which handles high-profile cases like celebrity cases, organized crime, serial killers, that kind of thing. That's when they show up to the scene. They then notice the white business envelope in between the two bodies, and the envelope had blood on it, and it looked like something had been in it. They will later discover that that was the glasses that Ron was returning to Nicole's house. They also are able to put together a solid understanding of the perp from the footprints and that this individual is likely injured on the left side of their body because, as you notice, there's like blood droplets like following along the footprints, and they were primarily on the left-hand side. They also decide that OJ should be informed of the passing of his ex-wife. And so all four men, Mark and his partner, Ron or Brad or whoever, and then Tom and Phil go to OJ's house because they know it's close. But what they're doing is leaving the crime scene unattended, which feels illegal.
Are there no other police officers there at the time?
I don't know. I don't know if they've been allowed them back on or what, but Mark remembers being upset by the fact that they were leaving the crime scene because he also felt four people were not necessary to go inform someone that their ex-wife had passed.
And it's for detectives, too.
Yes, for detectives.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So 4:15 a.m., OJ checks into his Chicago hotel. 4:35, police arrive, or the detectives arrive at the Rockingham mansion to tell him the bad news. But no one's there. And so they're kind of like wandering around. I don't think they've gotten past the gate. They're like they're doing what the limo driver did and just like pressing that button. 5:15 to 5:30, police go to the gate and ring the intercom, but they see a white Bronco parked on the curb outside the house. Not only is it parked outside the house, it's parked outside the house like an ass, like someone who was like kind of in a rush. And they didn't quite straighten out. And also, they're in a really rich area where people don't really park on the side of the road because they all have garages. And so
like huge gated driveways and things like that.
It just feels off to, I think, everyone. And so they're looking around the Bronco. Mark sees spots, like dark spots by the handle, and there's blood on the door, like right above the door handle to the driver's side. And so this is when he decides that they need to look inside the house to make sure that no one in the house is hurting or going to hurt themselves or someone else. It's called exigent circumstances. Exigent circumstances were set into precedent by U.S. v. McConney, and they're defined as, quote, circumstances that would cause a reasonable person to believe that entry or other relevant prompt action was necessary to prevent physical harm to the officers or other persons, the destruction of relevant evidence, the escape of the suspect, or some other consequence improperly frustrating legitimate law enforcement efforts. Basically, they don't need a warrant to break into your house if they think you're a threat to yourself or others.
Right. Or if they feel like this is a continuation of the crime that they have just found and are like pursuing. And
yeah. I think they're more concerned about, at least publicly, more concerned about OJ's well-being.
Sure.
I think it's a lot harder to argue in court that they're just following a perp.
Sure.
So Mark says, we just saw two dead bodies and there's a lot of blood. And I just saw what I believe to be blood on the door of the Bronco. So we need to go in. And this is also kind of weird because Mark Fuhrman is the junior detective. And so for the most part, he remembers that he was mostly listening until at one point he said, we need to go in there because I'm concerned. So 5:40 to 5:50, Mark jumps the wall and opens the gate from the inside for his, someone described it as like less athletic coworkers or something like that. And I was like, don't do them like that, Jesus. And they go and bang on the front door. No one's responding. They then notice a little pathway that goes around the house to where they see 2 to 3 bungalows. They knock on the first bungalow's door and Cato answers. And that's when they learn that OJ is not here. OJ's in Chicago, which at this point to me should have told them like, this is no longer an exigent circumstance. Like we need to leave until we can get a warrant. But I guess there's also argument for them staying and continuing to check out. I mean, Cato could be lying, so.
Because the exigent circumstance right now is that like we are afraid OJ's going to hurt himself.
Or someone else, or he's like taken someone else with him, They learn in the bungalow next door is Arnell, OJ's 25-year-old daughter from his first marriage. Mark stays with Cato while the other 3 go to Arnell's bungalow. Arnell hands over the key to the main house to Tom Lang. Tom goes and searches while Phil then stays with Arnell. He doesn't see anything amiss, and so they go ahead with contacting OJ from OJ's own phone in the kitchen, which just feels psychotic. But
it's the 90s, baby. There's not that many phones running around.
Get like literally a cell phone. Like, what are you doing?
They might not have them.
OJ had one, for sure. I know he did.
Oh, the multimillionaire movie star had one?
Yeah, which means that there were bulkier ones available.
For junior detectives in the LAPD.
I mean, the LAPD is overfunded as it is.
I remember how impressed I was of my mom when she got a cell phone in like 1999. I was like, you are business.
By around 6 a.m., one of the detectives using one of OJ's phones calls the Chicago hotel that OJ is staying at to deliver the news. OJ's response, and I want to preface this by saying it's really hard to judge any action based in grief. You never can predict how someone's going to act in grief. You can think it's strange, but it's not an admission of guilt. It's not anything. It's not admissible in court. Like, you can kind of use it, but it's not. Anyway, OJ does not ask when or how she died. He just says, oh my God, Nicole is killed. Oh my God, she's dead. The detective remembers specifically not telling OJ that Nicole had been murdered. He had just told OJ that Nicole was dead. OJ then arranges with Arnell to pick up the 2 kids, 8-year-old Sydney and 6-year-old Justin, from the police station. And OJ then tells the police that he will be on the next flight back to LA. Meanwhile, Mark Fuhrman is still with Cato at his bungalow. Mark asks Cato if anything strange happened last night. Cato was like, dude, did you feel an earthquake? Literally, I shit you not, is what he asked. He said, the picture frame moved. Did we have an earthquake? And Mark was like, what the fuck do you mean the picture frame moved? And Cato explains what happened, that he felt like a pounding or something. And so Mark kind of sees if there's anything behind the bungalows. And so he walks around, he is alone, and then goes back there. And when Mark is walking back there, he sees something on the ground, another black leather glove, which to him matches the one found near Ron Goldman's body at Nicole's house. Mark then brings Tom over, who confirms that this glove looks like it is a left-handed glove, and he remembers the glove at Nicole's to be a right-handed glove. And now at this point, this is where they draw the line, and they're like, this is now a crime scene. We need a warrant. We need to leave. 6:15, Mark is instructed by Tom to go back to the Bundy location and get a good look at the glove that was there to see if the two gloves could truly be a matching pair. He had to go and figure out how to not disturb this crime scene, which you saw how bloody it was.
Yeah.
Tom also gave him permission to get the photographer that was there to take a photo of how the glove was initially. And then if Mark felt the need to, he was allowed to pick up the glove to further inspect it, and then they could put it back in the same location that it was photographed. By 6:45 a.m., the press has gotten word of this and has started to show up. The sun is starting to come up. And so with the sun coming up and the media there, I think Tom is able to keep them a certain distance back just for law. I don't know how, but there's a certain number of feet they have to stay. Scene. Yeah. Right. But still from where they are, they can pretty clearly see Nicole's body. And Tom...
They haven't taken the bodies away yet.
No, another thing, yeah. And so he wants to protect the crime scene and protect the body. And so Tom, asks one of the detectives or one of the police that's there to go inside Nicole's place and find a blanket that they can cover her up with, something that's hospital-like or something. Tom then is able to inform the Brown family that Nicole has passed. And in the background, he starts to hear screaming from a female voice saying something like, "That motherfucker, he killed her." That person who is screaming is Denise Brown, Nicole's sister-in-law. And she will later remember when she first heard the news that she thought, oh my God, he finally did it. When Tom asks her, who are you talking about? She says, OJ. OJ Simpson finally killed her. By 6:50, Tom or Phil, one of the two homicide robbery detectives, notify the coroner's office to prepare to come to the crime scene. And they don't actually call the coroner to the crime scene until 8:10.
Okay.
First, the crime scene has a ton of evidence. They want to be able to capture all of it, The crime scene at Bundy Drive, however, continues to be processed. Criminalist named Dennis Fung is the one that's processing all the evidence. This involves photographing, taking samples from, dusting fingerprints, and all of that stuff. They are also then able to notify the Goldman family that Ron Goldman has passed. Kim is Ron's sister. Kim does not actually find out Ron has passed until later that evening. She gets home from work to the house her and her boyfriend share, and she literally just gets in the door and her boyfriend is like, you need to call your dad. And she's like, fuck you, I just got home, give me a goddamn second. And he's like, no, you need to call your dad. And so he tells her to go into the guest room or something, and Kim is like, you're gonna propose, aren't you?
Oh.
Yeah. And so she goes in, there's no ring, and so that's when she finally calls her dad and finds out that her brother has passed.
What an insane
turn of emotion.
Yeah. There's just so many different fascinating human moments in these, the thing that you most of us will fortunately never experience, and that you can't imagine what you would do if you experienced. Just so many different almost vignettes of life happening.
Little life happening.
Yeah.
7:30, Mark and his partner Brad arrive back to OJ's place, and they look at the Bronco. Again, now in the light of day. Mark shows Brad the bloodstain, and Brad goes around to the passenger side and looks inside, and he sees even more blood inside the Bronco. All over some of the seats, all over the center console, the steering wheel, etc. And in the light of day, they also see blood drops trailing from the back of the car, literally leading to the front door of OJ's house.
Okay.
10:45, police finally have a search warrant, and they're searching OJ's mansion, and they find even more blood traces on the property. Dennis Fung comes over to OJ's mansion to begin processing that, and the DA starts getting involved. In the primary suite of OJ's house, there's 2 black socks at the end of the bed, and one of the detectives says, quote, "They stand out like a pimple on a cheerleader's forehead. They're right there." And I was like,
okay.
That
Got it.
Did you plan that? How long have you been thinking about that metaphor? That was wild. It came out so smooth. There's also, these are now all things that Mark remembers noting down. Remember, he's also a junior detective. He notes down that there's a medical cabinet in the hall, and it seems like everything was just kind of ripped open and like it looked like someone was panicked trying to get something. That doesn't mean OJ killed anybody. That is just suspicious, you know,
Sure.
and should probably have been taken into evidence. There's also a mysterious, like really nice box on the side of a bathtub. There's blood smudges on a light switch downstairs, and there are fresh clothing in the washing machine that are still damp when he sees them. None of those things will be taken into evidence. Not a single one.
Not even the blood on the light switch.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. We'll talk about this later. I have a whole section for mishandled evidence. But basically what had happened is that the two lead detectives on the case, who are Phil and Tom, were going to take notes from Mark and Brad. And Mark wrote all this stuff down. He gives it to Brad or Ron or whoever the fuck. And then he watches Ron give it to, I think, Phil. And then watches Phil put the notes into his binder. And then they were never looked at. So that evidence just went like unseen. And Tom is like
unphotographed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tom is pissed off because he's like, you should have told somebody about that. But
Right.
also like, why the fuck aren't you reading notes for your other detectives? It's just like just a fucking nightmare. By noon, OJ is finally back at his mansion. OJ is handcuffed and taken to the station for questioning. Before he leaves for the police station, while he's still at the mansion, OJ asks why all the police are there, and Brad has to tell him there was a blood trail leading us here. And OJ starts sweating and hyperventilating and saying, like, oh man, repeatedly, and just kind of like going out of it.
Okay.
So OJ is taken to downtown for questioning. It's like a 30-minute interview questioning session, which just feels like criminal based off of how I know police can be when they think someone is guilty of something.
Right.
What do you mean you only questioned him for 30 minutes?
Right.
This interview is actually so ineffective and reveals nothing that later on in the case, neither the defense nor the prosecution enter anything from this interview into evidence. Like it's that unuseful. And which just pisses me off because I'm like, how did you not? Whatever. So Tom notices OJ has a cut on his left hand.
Okay.
And asks OJ where that cut came from. And I'm not sure the timeline of how these questions came out, but basically OJ says it happened when I cracked a glass in my hand when I got the call that Nicole was dead. Like I went into a rage, cracked a glass, and that's how I got that cut. And then later they tell him that's really interesting because there's blood all over your fucking house. And then he says, oh, well, I actually cut it probably here. I mean, I golf, I do all this stuff. Like I'm always kind of like nicking myself and stuff. And then I probably just reopened it with the glass.
Okay.
And I think the detectives are just kind of like, we're not getting a straight answer out of this guy. They ask him for a blood sample. He agrees. And the detectives are like, the blood will do the talking. Goodbye. They do ask him to take a polygraph. OJ says maybe, and I don't know. One of the detectives is like, that's an admission of guilt. And I'm like, that's literally fucking not.
Yeah, it's
A
definitely
polygraph
not.
test is literally not even admissible in court, but whatever. So OJ is released. Like, fully fucking released. After the questioning, Mark and his partner are officially relieved from the case. It's not their jurisdiction. They don't have to deal with it anymore, and so they leave. So June 15th, Robert Shapiro takes over as OJ's lead counsel from whoever OJ had previously. Robert, is known as a celebrity attorney, and he's known for getting good negotiated settlements. Okay, so that's just happening in his legal team. OJ's back at his mansion, just kind of like worrying about all the shit that's happening. He has a friend actually on the LAPD, a man named Ron Shipp, who is also another black man, a black cop, and comes over to his house because he had found out that Nicole had died and he had been close with Nicole and OJ. And so he goes over to like be a support system for his friend. And he sees the cut on OJ's finger and he says, how'd you get that cut? OJ says, I got it when I reached into the Bronco to grab like my phone or something. And then I like reopened it later. Ron Shipp is still at the house. Another person comes over. That person also asks what happened to OJ's finger because it's like wrapped up and it wasn't a small cut. And OJ tells this guy then that he got it when he cracked a glass in Chicago.
Okay.
So now Ron is like,
That's not what you told me.
what the fuck? Eventually, Ron and OJ are alone, and OJ asks Ron how long it takes for DNA tests to come back. And Ron is like, why the fuck would you want to know that? And he also tells Ron that he had been asked to take a polygraph and he had declined. And Ron was like, why would you not want to take a polygraph if you have nothing to be afraid of? And I mean, like I said, there's ample reason to not want to take a polygraph. But OJ tells him, instead of any of those very valid reasons, like it's not admissible in court, it's like disproportionately affects, I assume, people of color when they're like more afraid of enforcement and stuff like that. Instead of that, OJ says, well, I've had dreams of killing her. I mean, yeah, that's definitely a reason to not take a polygraph, my dude. What the fuck? Ron then remembers a time when he had been talking to Nicole back in 1989, and Nicole told him that OJ had hit her and that it wasn't for the first time. And at first, Ron doesn't...
And 1989 is 5 years before the crime.
Yes.
Okay.
At first, Ron doesn't believe her because, I mean, OJ had this whole persona of being like kind of this happy-go-lucky guy, a guy that was charming to everyone and personable and all this shit. And Nicole, good on her, had taken pictures of her injuries to have evidence of them. And so she shows them. And so Ron believes her, and Ron confronts OJ, who says that she's actually the aggressor. I was just trying to like hold her back or defend myself, but he doesn't have these wounds. So, you know, whatever. But Ron does say, you're a wife batterer. And he says, yeah, I am, I guess.
Okay.
Like, what?
And that was back in 84 or 89?
89.
Okay.
Yeah. After all of this, Ron gets back into his car. Remember that happened in 89. He has just gotten back from hearing OJ tell him that he has had dreams about killing Nicole. Ron gets into his car and he just starts crying, and he calls his wife because he says, I knew OJ did it at this point. And so it's just like, what do you do in that situation? You know? June 16th, 1994, funerals are held for Nicole and Ron. OJ attends the funeral for Nicole with their 2 kids. People that remember seeing OJ remember him being in somewhat of a daze, not really talking to people. At Ron's funeral, Ron Goldman's father says, quote, if what few little things we've heard in any way are true about Ron putting up quite a fight, maybe to help, it wouldn't surprise me. Which is just heartbreaking. And it's just really, like, this whole situation is awful, right? But it's really heartbreaking, at least for me, for Ron's family, because Ron was just quite literally the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah. If it is OJ that did it, then he was never meant to be there, you know?
Right. Part of me, I mean, I know you'll talk more, like, was OJ in the bushes outside, like, contemplating back and forth, and then when he saw Rob, right? That's his name, walk up, Ron. Rob Kev, that, like, finally is what sent him into, like, that final rage state, or were they literally outside talking and OJ just came said, up?
Fuck you.
Was the timeline just gets awful regardless of what you think of. Like, was the assault already happening when
Ron walked up and tried to help?
Yeah. All 3 are horrible for different reasons.
Yes. Every part, there's no part of this that isn't awful.
But also, having not looked at this at all, obviously it's the end result of the case that's famous, and then the way it made OJ... It remade his image after the case, even though he is, spoiler alert for our non-American friends, he's acquitted from all of this. Mm-hmm. I hadn't realized just how much evidence there was that draws a very clear link.
There's literally no one else you could assume.
I mean, you can definitely, like, spin some very interesting stories or whatever, but I really had not prepared for there to be a almost literal trail of blood between these 2 places.
Yeah, right? I didn't either. So Ron Goldman's sister, Kim, the one who thought she was getting proposed to, is interviewed in my primary source, which is American Manhunt documentary. It's a 4-part series on Netflix. So she's interviewed in this, and I'm sure other documentaries and stuff like that. She is an advocate today for things like this. Okay. His sister says in the doc, quote, unlike so many other murder victims, our stuff happened very quickly. It was very public. So there wasn't a lot of question about how the investigation was going. So many other families don't get information at all, and they have to beg and plead for it. While ours, we couldn't stop getting it, which is a different kind of horrible, you know?
Yeah.
So there's 2 pictures. You can scroll. This is Nicole, and then below is Ron Goldman.
They're both young.
Important to note, Nicole is white. OJ is black.
Right. There is an element where it's like, this is such a 90s look out of both of them, you know?
I want to believe Ron Goldman's gay just by like the way his hair is, but I don't think he is.
That's a Ryan Gosling up until like 2006
that's true, yeah.
haircut.
Leo had that.
Yeah. Leonardo DiCaprio, Titanic. He's 19 years old. He absolutely has this.
He did.
Yes, he does. Like
in his breakout role.
Let me tell you. Yeah, they're people who so clearly have their whole lives in front of them.
Yeah. And Nicole is just stunning. Unsure on the specific date, but the blood results do come back. The blood trailing the bloody footprints is confirmed to be OJ's. The blood found in and around the Bronco is confirmed to be made up of blood from Nicole, Ron, and OJ.
Sorry, hold on. So the blood on at the Bundy house.
At Nicole's house.
There is provable blood of OJ's at Nicole's house.
Yes.
And then there is Rob. Is it Rob or Ron?
Ron.
As soon as I got it in my head as Rob,
That's
it's
fine.
been so hard to get it to Ron.
There's like, I think 3 Rons, but maybe only 2, and I made up a third. I don't know.
But there's Ron and Nicole and OJ's blood at the white Bronco at his house and then into the house.
And the blood at Rockingham's is confirmed to be in part OJ's. Blood on the right leather glove, which is the one found at Rockingham, is OJ's. And so all the circumstantial evidence is adding up, and they decide they're going to go for a warrant for arrest the next morning. And that's where we'll leave you for a drink refill. Got a little drinky?
Yeah. Ready for part 2?
Do you know what happens in this next section?
No. All of this basically has been brand new for me.
There's one part of this that's very, very famous.
Okay.
There's
2 things I know.
Okay, yeah.
There's the Bronco chase scene.
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Okay. And then the second thing is...
the gloves.
Yeah, because John Mulaney mentions it in the stand-up special. Yeah. That was the reference I was making. Okay.
I don't remember specifically what John Mulaney said, so you'll have to remind me when we get there. But okay. June 17th, 1994, around 7 a.m., the arrest warrant is secured. OJ is formally charged with a double homicide of Nicole and Ron. Robert Shapiro, who is OJ's lawyer, has worked out a deal with the police that OJ would turn himself in by like either 10 or 11 a.m. the next morning.
He has like 24 hours, essentially.
Well, 7 a.m. to 10 or 11 a.m.
Oh, okay, that day. Only hours.
Day.
Gotcha.
Well, the other option is that someone will go to his house and
publicly arrest him.
Yeah, and so they wanted to avoid that. And I think initially Robert says OJ will turn himself in by 10, and then later that becomes 11. And Phil and Tom, the 2 lead detectives, just wanted to go and pick him up, but the police department wanted a perp walk of him being like paraded, preferably in handcuffs, in front of the cameras. So is this how you would treat a double homicide like perpetrator?
I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
I think
like,
probably just get him arrested as soon as possible.
Should have been
right.
the mode, but I also saw a source saying that they allowed this to happen. They allowed like OJ to kind of dictate when he came to the police station because they figured he's so famous. Where can he hide?
Right.
Which I guess, but also kind of fucking stupid, especially for a man that's that wealthy. No, get him in handcuffs right now.
Right. I think part of me, like, yeah, I do have a hard time imagining him running, but also I'm like fully aware of he's flown twice in the last 12 hours already.
Yeah.
Like, I'm well aware of his ability to
just like.
Wait, so the arrest warrant goes out for him the day after. How many days after the initial crime scene is discovered?
It's the.
Like 3 or 4?
14th, I believe. Let me make sure that that's right. It's the 13th, the day of the 13th when the bodies are discovered. Like the morning. / night is when that happens. So, yeah, the 13th to the 17th.
Okay.
17th.
Okay.
Yeah. Around 9:30 a.m., the lawyer, Robert Shapiro, goes to the house where he has found out OJ is, and that's not his house. He is at Bobby's house, another fucking Robert, because I needed another fucking R name to confuse me in this episode. Bobby is Robert Kardashian. At this house, they will later find out there is a criminalist and a doctor and some other people examining OJ at Bobby's house, taking pictures of his injuries. They're taking hair samples and blood samples, likely to try and counteract the work that the LAPD is doing.
Case.
Yes. Robert Shapiro tells OJ that they need to surrender by 11 a.m. And OJ says, I need to talk to my family. And so he goes and calls his mother and then his children. 11 a.m., surprise, surprise, no OJ at the police station. Mike Gilbert, his agent, remembers going to OJ's house and finding out that OJ was at Bobby Kardashian's house. Police then call the lawyer, Robert Shapiro, who is still with OJ, and Robert says OJ's upset and whatever else, and the police say that, okay, well, we're going to go to OJ's house and pick him up. And around this time, not sure exactly when, is when Robert realizes OJ is no longer at Bobby's house. He has gone. Another source said that Robert didn't actually discover that OJ was gone until the police actually arrived at Bobby's house, and that's when they realized. But either way, OJ has vanished. 1:00 p.m., 4 officers knock on OJ's door at his Rockingham mansion, and OJ is gone. They find a letter, and it is read by Bobby Kardashian to the press later on in that day. It reads like a suicide note. So at the beginning it says, it's very long also, to whom it may concern, first, everyone understand I have nothing to do with Nicole's murder. I loved her, always have, and always will. If we have a problem, it's because I loved her so much. Later on in the letter, he says, as a last wish, please, please, please leave my children in peace. Their lives will be tough enough. And then at the end is when it really looks like a suicide note saying, quote, don't feel sorry for me. I've had a great life, great friends. Please think of the real OJ and not this lost person. Thanks for making my life special. I hope I helped yours. Peace and love, OJ. It's handwritten, and I think it ends up being like 4 pages long or something like that. Around 2 p.m., LAPD holds a press conference announcing now officially that 46-year-old OJ Simpson is a fugitive. He has not. They're actively searching for him. The media in the room starts asking really fucking super valid questions like, how the fuck did you let this happen?
Right.
And were you not watching him? And you didn't have a tail on him? And remember, like, it was the LAPD's call, not the detective's call. It was they call it the brass. They call it the brass's call to, like, let him come so that they could get a media moment with OJ in handcuffs. This man who is representing the brass is also asked if this is all a result of preferential treatment being given to OJ because he's famous. And he says, quote, there is no preferential treatment. There has not been any preferential treatment. Yeah. So fun fact about OJ's career as a football player, he was so good at being a running back and like running really fast. He, was nicknamed the Juice because OJ. And so people would say the juice is on the loose when he was doing those crazy runs that he was known for. So my next bullet was the juice really do be loose.
Okay.
I'm funny. There was a legitimate concern at this point that he could charter an aircraft and escape.
Yeah.
They show a clip of a newscaster interviewing people on the street. And this isn't even broken up like 2 different people in different areas. These are 2 people standing right next to each other. And I think this is just crazy foreshadowing for what's to come. I don't even know what the question was, but they put the microphone to a black woman first. And she says, quote, I pray for him and I hope that he turns himself in. We all would like to hear his side of the story. And then the mic goes to a white man standing next to her. And he says, I just hope he can run as fast as he used to be able to.
What?
Bitch, that man is suspected of killing 2 people. And you're telling him he should be running?
But also, didn't it feel ominous? It was more like, yeah, I wouldn't turn myself in either if I were you. You're definitely guilty.
Just so, and you can see in the video, he's so happy with himself. And to be fair, that's fucking hilarious if this wasn't a double homicide that you're now joking about.
Right.
4:45 p.m.
Oh my God. It's in the evening now.
Yes. OJ is spotted on the 5 freeway headed north in a white Bronco. But wait a minute, because the LAPD has already gotten OJ's Bronco.
Okay, that was
house.
actually my next question. I was like, they didn't impound
No,
his
they
car?
took it. So now he's in his friend's white Bronco.
Did he have a deal with whoever makes the Bronco, the Ford?
No, I don't think
Ford?
so.
Okay.
He just fucking loved a white Bronco.
Okay.
So this is his friend AC's white Bronco, who I think is also a football player. And similar to saying no to taking a polygraph, like I fully understand running. Like even if I was framed for something and thought I was going to go to prison, I'm not going to say that I wouldn't try and escape.
Right.
If I had the means, sure. But it also doesn't look good for you when your first response is to not turn yourself in, but to fucking book it in the other direction. And also, you can never rationalize someone's response in these kinds of situations. So whatever. 6:20 p.m., a motorist in the OC, Orange County, spots OJ riding in a white Bronco driven by Al Cowlings, AC, and he calls the police. A dozen police cars and news helicopters start carefully watching this pursuit, and he's going like 30 miles an hour.
Oh.
Which I thought this was a high-speed chase. Okay. Yeah, because AC's driving, OJ is either in the passenger seat or in the back seat. 30 miles an hour on the fucking freeway. I always thought that this was much more intense, but looking at the videos, I'm like, oh, they're going slow. They're going real slow. Along the road, because there's so much coverage of what's happening, OJ fans are like lining the sides of streets and on like overpasses with signs that say things like save the juice and like we love the juice and juice on the loose. And here are pictures of some of those people.
Whoa.
Yeah.
This is just so
right?
I don't even know what to say about all of this.
Yeah.
Because again, this person's accused of double homicide. I'm calling someone. But also like there are elements that remind me of Luigi Mangione in this, which like you and I have been flippant about. But also at the same time, I think the discourse diverges here because there's a question of like, well, what is Luigi, if he did do it, what was he attacking? What is he a symbol of, et cetera, et cetera. But also like a lot of it is that like Luigi Mangione is like conventionally attractive and maybe that is cutting in the same way towards OJ's favor. And when you become beyond a person, then you become beyond the crime that you may be committed. But for those of you listening and are curious, the two people who were holding the like OJ Simpson signs are white dudes in like their
really
20s.
They seem very young.
Yeah. But like not under the age of 18 young.
No.
Like could be paneled
Like
on a
20s,
jury
young. Yeah, for sure. Helicopters are following the Bronco. There's live broadcast of the chase. An estimated 95 million people watch a 60-mile chase on TV. This broadcast...
I mean, I get that. Yeah.
This broadcast interrupted the NBA Finals. It was such a big deal. It was actually playing on the Jumbotron at Madison Square Garden. Yeah, there's like clips of what I assume are the NBA players like literally looking up to like check in on what's going on the chase. So you know when like sometimes there's like a big event, SNL does this, Stephen Colbert does this, where there's like they'll do like a small screen, big screen thing. Like small screen will show them setting up in between and then big screen will be the ad. Yeah, so imagine that except big screen, chase, little screen, NBA finals.
We just don't get live television moments like that anymore.
That's just... I want to be a part of something.
The closest I could say is for like a week after the Super Bowl, there were a bunch of videos of people watching it like together.
Yeah.
Like someone at like a Walmart Supercenter put it on like the halftime show on the TV and like just the crowds that paused and gathered everywhere. Yeah.
I just love that. Yeah. I mean, not for this, but it is a cool cultural moment. I wasn't alive at this point, but... Right? Yeah. I wasn't alive at this point, but... I still have a very clear memory of seeing like screenshots and video clips of this chase down the highway. Like I can so clearly see the white Bronco, you know?
And it does move slow. I guess I assumed it was just like an aerial view or whatever,
no,
but it is moving slow. Yeah. It's a chase, but they're not
chasing.
No.
And I'll explain that in a second.
Okay.
So AC eventually calls the police and he says, everyone's okay. We're in the car. Everything's fine. OJ is still alive, but the police need to back off a little bit, just a little bit, because they were getting pretty close, because OJ has a gun to his head. To his own head, not AC's head.
Right, right.
Yeah. And AC is saying that OJ wants to get to his mom. So that's where they're driving. I don't know why, or maybe he's trying to get home, whatever. And so now that they know that there's a gun in the car, that becomes a much bigger problem because they don't know if OJ's going to use the gun on himself, if he's going to use it on AC, if he's going to use it on the police that are chasing him, if he's going to use it on the people that are lining the sides of the roads. Like, he's a danger to himself and others, and they have to assume he is able and willing to use it.
He's armed and dangerous because what he is being accused of is murder of 2 people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Deeply. Yeah. And so the police do, in fact, back up. But that is part of the reason why it's so slow, because they're like, we need to keep track of this guy and we're going to follow him wherever he's going. So when he does eventually stop, we can get him. But we can't do anything in the meantime, you know?
Does he get to his mom's?
He gets back to his house. He gets back to Rockingham. I don't know if that was always the plan or if he had changed after he realized so many people were following or what. But eventually, one of the lead detectives, Tom, I don't remember what happened, but someone was like, did you try calling his cell phone? And Tom was like, do you even have his number? And that person was like, yeah, here. And they just call his cell phone.
They just call OJ during the chase?
Yes. And OJ picks up.
One of the things that's kind of, as a host and the listener of this episode,
yes.
That's interesting and difficult about this true crime story specifically is that obviously it's steeped in tragedy, but it's also at times bizarre and Hollywood-like, you know?
It just feels like it could be scripted, but at the same time, it's too weird to have been scripted.
Yeah, and the weirdness takes you out of the reality of the horrific crime whose pictures I have now seen.
Yes.
Because it's like,
you forget.
What do you mean there's a 35 mile per hour low speed chase being watched by 100 million people that the LAPD is largely incapable of stopping?
Yeah. And people have had enough times to make signs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make like decent signs and banners. It's like, what do you mean?
Right.
What do you mean? So Tom Lang eventually gets OJ on the phone, and I think he has to call like 3 times. But what he gathers, OJ picks up every time. The first time he finds out it's Tom with the LAPD, and he hangs up. And the second time, I think maybe something similar happens. And the third, he still picks up, to which to Tom says he wants to talk to someone.
Right.
And so finally he manages to get into a conversation with OJ. OJ is adamant immediately. He's not going to hurt anyone but himself. His intent is to hurt himself. And Tom is trying to just like do all the classic negotiator things of like, your family loves you, your kids love you, like this isn't the end of the world. Like, please just like you're scaring people, you're scaring like your family.
Right.
He's trying to convince OJ to like throw the gun out the window, like get rid of it. And OJ says he just wants to get back to his own house so he can kill himself there. Tom continues to remind him of all the people that love OJ. And the SWAT team is eventually called to report to the Rockingham address to basically be there when OJ pulls up. Around 8 p.m. is when the Bronco pulls into the driveway at Rockingham. Tom is still on the phone with OJ and trying to convince OJ to get rid of the gun. OJ is still insisting he's not going to point it at anyone, and he notably like sounds fucking exhausted at this point. Like they play some of the recordings of it, and he sounds like fucking tired. And if you think about it, like he hasn't probably slept.
Right.
You know, like this is going on. Yeah, like you don't know how many hours he's been without sleeping. I mean, I wouldn't be able to sleep at this point.
Well, and part of me is also like, obviously not an excuse.
Yes.
But if the crime happened during a manic episode, like those can go on for days.
Yes.
And they do not allow you to sleep.
Stop. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. At this point, there's like 15 helicopters in the air all above Rockingham. So you can imagine like how loud it is. There's people all over the streets because they know this is probably where the chase is going to end up. So there's just people fucking everywhere. It's loud as shit. Eventually they get the Bronco into the gate, close the gate behind him. And then things just kind of stop. Like AC is still in the car. OJ is still in the car. Nothing's happening. Mike Gilbert, OJ's agent, shows up to the scene. And he learns at this point that the SWAT team has snipers set up. Mm-hmm. And if OJ leaves the car with the weapon in hand, he is going to be shot. That's just how it is.
Can I just say real quick? Mm-hmm. It's very interesting, like the motivation around law enforcement in this moment.
Yeah.
And also now with the benefit of hindsight, which obviously law enforcement does not have.
Yep.
Where it's like, if OJ were to die from suicide
mm-hmm.
during this moment, he would probably be still charged with murder posthumously.
Yeah.
And it would be a murder-suicide thing, stretched out over a couple of days.
Yeah.
And, it would, like that, it would just produce a different result than what we actually get from the case.
So here's what is really happening. Do you remember Rodney King?
Yes.
Do you want to tell them a little bit about what happened?
Rodney King essentially gets pulled over in LA in I think the 80s, but it could have been the 70s.
It's I think 2 or 3 years before
80s,
this
early
happens.
90s. Okay. And during like a routine traffic stop, it escalates in ways that Americans still understand today.
Happened in 2020.
Right. From a car stop by the local police to Rodney King is pulled out of the vehicle and beaten violently by like 5 or 6 LAPD
4,
officers.
yeah.
Okay. But it's captured on video.
Yes.
And it's one of the moments where this long story of police brutality against specifically the Black community, but like all communities of color, is finally given like video proof of what this looks like.
Yeah.
And LA ignites in a riot around it. So very similar in a lot of ways to what we saw in Minneapolis, but for a longer period of time.
Yes.
And with an intensity
Yes.
that we didn't quite see during them. Not that it, but just like it is.
They weren't so scared of violence back then.
No.
There was a lot of looting and fires.
Well, the violence was such that it changed city politics, probably still to this day, in a way that other movements have made people more conscious of, but maybe hasn't fundamentally rewritten the equation yet.
Right, yeah.
But the response is so intense, and violence is not even the right word, but just so, I mean, there is violence, obviously, but intense in a way that changes things.
Yeah. So what Mike says, he tries to get in. He's like, I'm his agent. I can get him out of the car. And the police are like, no. They end up not letting him in. But Mike's next response is, if you think the riots after Rodney King were bad, you're not ready for what happens if you shoot OJ Simpson right now.
On his yard.
In his yard. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if they had already been thinking about that, but that certainly is a wake-up call, I think, for everyone involved, being like. So AC eventually gets out of the car, and he's still like the door's still open. He's just standing outside, and he's trying to get the SWAT team to stand down a little bit. And the SWAT team is able to convince AC to get out of the way so that their negotiator, a man named Peter Weireder, is able to talk to OJ directly. So AC is able to leave. The negotiator, Peter, then stands outside of OJ's house. He had been inside OJ's house. He stands outside so that OJ can see him and indicates I'm about to call you, so that OJ can humanize him, which is another tactic from negotiators. And so he gets him on the phone. Peter had noticed while he was in OJ's house that he sees the Heisman Trophy. He sees all of these photographs covering the walls of OJ's accomplishments, of OJ with famous people that he knows, of OJ doing this, of OJ doing that. And so what he decides is he's going to try to appeal to OJ's ego, which makes sense. And the sun is starting to go down. So Peter gets on the phone with OJ.
Is this still being live streamed?
For the most part. I mean, there's still a fuck ton of helicopters and news and So I don't know if I don't think the conversation, but there's definitely news people. It's like watching to see when the new Pope gets announced. Just a,
They're cutting to it and he's still in the car.
Yeah, he's still in the car. So Peter tries a bunch of tactics. He tries to get OJ to think of his kids. OJ just kind of keeps ranting and bringing it back to himself, saying I'm so sorry that I'm caused all of this to happen. And Peter eventually, what he does to get OJ out of the car is to say that you can save face right now by coming out and surrendering. I'll shake your hand, we'll walk into the house, and then we can talk like people do, And so OJ eventually gets out of the car, not holding a gun. They get worried because he is holding something. What it turns out to be is a photo of Nicole in in a metal frame. And he surrenders peacefully at his house, right?
Sorry.
Yeah. He surrenders peacefully at his house a little bit before 9 p.m. and he is arrested and jailed without bail because he's a flight risk. Yeah, big time. I mean,
maybe the biggest flight risk.
Yeah, the biggest flight risk who has ever flight risked.
Right. He would be a second-time flight risk.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
When he's arrested, the police search.
The NBA is you can't give him bail money, not until the final's done.
Keep it rolling.
The LA police chief's getting all sorts of weird calls.
Please stop. Please keep going. So the police search the white Bronco AC had been driving. They find almost $9,000 in cash, a fake beard and mustache with the glue and stuff to put it on, the loaded gun, passport. This man was
He had some options that he was considering in that car.
Yes, for sure. Another thing that will not be brought to trial as evidence.
I just want to point out, too, when you first told me that he was going north on a freeway, I was like, Mexico is much closer.
That's where
I wasn't
going to
say it out
escape,
loud,
but
I was like, Tijuana is like right there. And that's a big city. I mean, maybe not for like a famous person, but like, you know.
Pretty big. So they put him in the car. They start driving down back to Parker Center. And there are people fucking everywhere on these roads. If you can imagine like the LA Hills roads, there's not really a sidewalk. You know, there's people just like kind of in the bushes coming out. And this is the first real time I think OJ is processing how many people are out. Peter remembers OJ looking around, and I'm not going to use the word that OJ used here, but he said, "What are all these black people doing in Brentwood?"
Ooh.
I don't know, maybe supporting you, my dude. Like, yeah.
The racial politics of this episode are going to get weirder, and they've already been
it's going to get so weird.
Interesting.
Yes. In fact, this next section is called Race.
Oh, okay, great. Really put in a lot of effort on that title.
Yeah.
Huh?
There was a lot of things going on. Here is a quote. I think this might be from one of his defense attorneys that we'll meet later on. Quote, "OJ wasn't one that we would see in a community taking part in African-American events. But once he was charged, we still were able to connect with his circumstance and with his blackness. And so his identity kind of changes the second he gets charged, at least to the public perception." And a reminder, this is LA about 2 years after the Watts riots, after Rodney King, after Rodney King was beaten by police. And there's a lot of tension between the black community and LAPD. And everyone in the black community around LA at this point reportedly knew someone who had been mistreated by the police, falsely accused of something by the police, et cetera, et cetera. In Rodney King, like Grant mentioned, there were 4 white policemen who were videotaped beating Rodney King in 1991. And they were tried in a primarily white community in Simi Valley. And on April 29th, 1992, they were acquitted. What resulted is one of the worst riots in U.S. history. And so all of this OJ Simpson stuff is happening in the shadow of that. And so now we're going to talk about the mishandling of the evidence before we get into what happens with the trial. So there's a fingerprint on the doorknob of the back gate that is never collected as evidence. Jill Shively, the woman who saw OJ driving erratically, is never called as a witness. There's some like legal stuff with why she wasn't called, but other people in the legal field are like, that was bullshit. She still could have been called. She sold her story. No one had told her she can't sell her story. And one of the lead prosecutors was like, that contaminates her as a witness, whatever. Skip Junis, the man who saw OJ at the airport, was also never called as a witness. They told him they were going to call him after a certain section of the prosecution's argument was done, and he was just never called. Also, the detectives, all 4 of the detectives, basically left the crime scene unattended. The bodies were discovered around 12:15 a.m., but the coroner was not called until almost 7 a.m.
Right.
Per their own regulation, they should have immediately notified the coroner's office, because if the coroner had been there earlier, they could have identified a much more accurate time of death for both of these individuals, which would help because there's only about like a little, I think it's like an hour and 10 minutes that OJ is unaccounted for from any witness. And so that time frame really, really does matter, and they missed it. Detective Brad said the circumstances dictated it, saying that the police wanted to investigate before the coroner came and removed the body. But like, you're telling me the coroner couldn't come inspect the body and then just
and the investigation couldn't continue.
Leave before they take it again. But another thing that was an issue, the blanket covering the bodies, that came from inside Nicole's house, where of course OJ's DNA is.
Right.
So now you're nullifying any amount of DNA that actually was maybe on Nicole's body because it could have been on the blanket that was in her house, where, you know, his children also live.
Right.
A ton of things were not collected as evidence. Like I said, the medical cabinet, the box on the edge of the tub, there's blood on the light switch, clothes on the washing machine, all of this not collected. So no photographs, no documentation or anything. And I think I mentioned this earlier that there was documentation. Mark had written it all down. He just hadn't verbally communicated it with anyone, and no one ever read his notes. So, you know, just bad process, I guess. The recorded interview, 33-minute interview that was initially used was never brought into evidence for a slew of reasons, but like it feels like just another thing that's not brought into evidence. And none of the things found in AC's white Bronco were brought into evidence either. Not like the money, the gun, the like things that were so clearly meant to help him get away. None of that was presented at trial. So now we're going to talk about the trial. Meet the teams. The defense team. This is like the Marvel Cinematic Universe of defense teams. This is fucking crazy to me. So it's Robert Shapiro, who we've talked about, and Johnny Cochran. And they have a jury consultant named Joellen Demetrius. And we'll talk about jury consultants in a second. Shapiro is more of a negotiator and notably is white. Johnny Cochran is black and he has experience in like civil rights stuff and trial expertise. And he's also very well known in the black community. Later on in his life, he would be hired to defend Michael Jackson and then later Sean Diddy Combs. So Carl E. Douglas is a man that works under Johnny, also a black man, defense lawyer. I'll let you read this.
I've always said I was put on this earth to sue cops. It's what I love doing. It allows me to make the world better for somebody else. It is righteous. We put so much trust and faith in our police that when they do us wrong, it can be devastating.
I just love I was put on this earth to sue cops. Fucking incredible. Robert Shapiro, the other lead attorney or lead defense lawyer, had previously represented the Menendez brothers, the brothers that were accused and convicted of killing their father, although there's a whole lot there. Initially, Robert Shapiro was the lead, but eventually Robert would either pass off the lead or Johnny would take the lead or whatever. And I don't think this was taken well by Robert Shapiro, who was like kind of a celebrity lawyer at this point. Also on the defense team is F. Lee Bailey, who had represented, prior to this, the Boston Strangler and Patty Hearst.
Okay.
Alan Dershowitz. Does that name sound familiar?
It does.
Yeah. And I think it said Alan Dershowitz and in his entire Harvard class. I think he was a professor at Harvard and maybe had his students helping or something. I don't know. Alan Dershowitz would later defend, do you know? Jeffrey Epstein in 2008 and Julian Assange, the WikiLeaks guy, in 2011, and Harvey Weinstein in 2018 and Donald Trump in 2020.
Wow.
Like I said, the Marvel Cinematic Universe of defense lawyers.
And also kind of some like
shitty people.
Yeah.
Also on this defense team are Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld, who were DNA experts that were also kind of attorneys from New York City. And in total, there's about 16 to 17 people working on the defense team.
What about Kardashian?
So Kim Kardashian, one of her claims to fame will be that her dad got OJ Simpson off.
Right.
That's not true.
Okay.
What I've heard it described as like he was more the OJ handler. Like he was the one that could get OJ where they needed OJ.
Gotcha.
But he was not technically on the defense team.
He wasn't some brilliant legal mind. He and OJ just could kick it in a way that, okay.
Yeah. And that was more, understandable to general people than her saying I'm Paris Hilton's assistant.
Sure.
Yeah. So OJ's defense team will later be known as the Dream Team.
Yeah, I mean, credentials, that makes sense.
Yeah, if you throw enough money at a situation, I do think it solves itself at some point. That's what I'm learning through this anyway. The prosecution is made up of Marcia Clark, who will remain the lead prosecution throughout, and then Bill Hodgman. They have a jury consultant named Don Vinson. Bill Hodgman, early on in this whole thing, will have a medical event that will cause him to not be able to do the case, and he will be replaced by Christopher Darden, who is a black man.
Okay.
And so people see this swap, and they understand Bill Hodgman had a medical event, but what they think they see is that Christopher Darden was not your best. You picked a black man because you wanted the better visuals of that, especially since the defense has a black lawyer and a black firm. OJ Simpson started referring to Christopher Darden as Token.
Ooh.
And everyone kind of agrees that they feel the DA picked Chris.
In the media, he's saying that about?
I don't know if I don't know. It's public knowledge that he was calling him Token.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Crazy.
Sorry. Just the media games that are getting played. Okay.
Yes. Everyone kind of agrees that Chris was picked probably for his race, but Chris is interviewed in this documentary and he says, no, I was good. I hadn't lost a felony trial in 15 years.
Sure.
But then there's other arguments he might have been good, but he definitely wasn't their best. There were other, so it's
more credentialed, tenured.
Yes. white
lawyers that they could have put on.
Yes. So I've mentioned a jury consultant a couple times. I didn't know what a jury consultant was. I mean, I heard the term, but I didn't really know, so I Googled it. And so they predict the behavior of people of potential or sitting jurors that are potential or sitting jurors and consult how they could impact trial strategy. So in the scope of jury selection, the consultant does detailed background checks. They help craft specific questions that the lawyers can ask to reveal potentially hidden biases, and they also analyze body language and facial expressions and nonverbal cues to try and redirect lawyers. During the trial itself, they can help run mock trials to test certain strategies. They can analyze real-time jury responses and offer real-time feedback in order to maintain jury engagement. Like, hey, you're losing them. You're going too hard. They're getting off-put by how you're acting. That kind of thing.
It's why when you ever get drawn for jury duty and you don't want to do it, you say, well, no, I don't believe the police. I don't think you can ever believe any evidence they've ever put forward, and I would never believe the prosecution. And I also believe that the government is full of lizard people. And they're like, juror number 82, you're good. Thanks so much. Enjoy. Get out of there.
I'm increasingly feeling like that in real life, though. So.
But the crucial thing is you wait long enough that you don't have to go back to work that day. Around noon is when you go, I don't trust cops. I don't know.
I have something to say.
And then, of course, defense is going to really want you, but so you have to make sure the prosecution hears you.
Yeah, that's the key there. That's the key.
I don't trust cops and the government is lizard people.
And or. Whichever one floats either of your boats, that's what I believe. Yeah, because I don't think I had really processed that they're not just trying to like collectively find the best jury for the case. Like the prosecution's trying to find the best jury for them and the defense is trying to find the best jury for them. And that's how they end up with the jury that they get. But it's not like they're working together to get a jury or something like that.
This is maybe better off just Patreon to not disturb the flow too much, but it fits in this part of the story right here. Yeah. When we are paneling judges for speech and debate competitions, like you want a diverse panel of judges because a monolithic viewpoint produces
the same view.
Yeah, a little bit. But one of the issues we run into is the schools that oftentimes bring judges that are diverse are themselves schools that have students who are diverse because those students graduate and then they stay affiliated with the program or their parents
crossover.
Or whatever. Yeah. Right, but obviously a judge from school A can't judge a child from school A. And so the child from school A is getting judged by school B's judges who are all old and white. And the children of school B are getting this like beautiful, diverse perspective on how to like make their presentations better and well-rounded or as their own. And so like, it's just something that we have to be aware of sometimes.
Just remember that at the one national tournament I judged, there was a girl who was like, yes, the U.S. should be involved in other politics because we're Christian, and end of argument. And I was like, whoa.
And she is benefiting from school A bringing a depressed bisexual biracial woman. Because I am in also many ways a jury consultant.
Well, I think she got last.
I want you to know that we put a little plus next to judges that identifies diversity as enhancing. So depressed, bisexual, biracial, plus, which
I think I remember when you told me that and I was like, take away those pluses. I am white, straight, and so neurotypical.
It's Matt Warner this weekend.
I don't know who you think you're looking at. Okay, so jury consultants. According to one source, most jury consultants are well-educated, many holding PhD or Juris Doctor, which is a post-grad 3-year kind of law degree, and or they have bachelors in things like psychology, social sciences, communications, linguistics, or trial law, things like that. So that's a jury consultant. So going into pretrial and stuff, the first thing the defense did was request a speedy trial. Which the prosecution was likely expecting that the defense would do the exact opposite because there's so much evidence to process. What their strategy actually was to speed it up so that there were probably more mistakes being made, and that puts even more pressure on the prosecution. Do you know who the burden of proof falls in criminal trials?
Oh, it's the prosecution.
Yeah, has to do what?
They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they're guilty with the evidence they put forward.
And that's the only way someone can get convicted. The defense's job is to just prove there is reasonable doubt.
Right.
That's it.
Not that they're fully innocent, but that they're not fully guilty.
So, yeah. So the prosecution then also makes the decision to file the case in the downtown district, rather than the district where the crime actually happened, which was Santa Monica. That would have been procedure. One of the reasons they made this decision publicly was that they wanted to reduce commuting for some of the prosecutors and also to better accommodate the expected media frenzy. They also they did say this publicly, but I don't know if this was like the reason that people understood, is that they knew the jury pool in Santa Monica would be primarily white. And if they moved it downtown, that's a more diverse community where they can get a more diverse jury pool, because they understood, especially after Rodney King, I think it's the same police chief that's there between Rodney King and here. They're ultra sensitive to the optics of what that would look like. They're so sure that OJ Simpson is guilty that they are very concerned of what it would look like if a jury of
when
white
he is
people
found guilty.
Convicts him as guilty.
Yeah. And
so they want a diverse pool. June 22nd, 1994. I'm still not alive yet, by the way.
This bitch. I'm barely alive at this time for the
less than a year old or a year?
Yeah, I'm a little over a year. Okay, but I'm not at 2 by any means. July 94? Yeah, it's a year.
It's June, but whatever. So OJ pleads, quote, absolutely, positively, 100% not guilty to Judge Lance Ito. At this point, it's like not possible for OJ to deny his presence at the crime scene just because of like the sheer amount of evidence that's there. And so I think the prosecution is kind of like, I mean, like, what are you going to do?
Right.
Like, we have him at the scene of the crime, right? September 9th is when the prosecution officially decides to not pursue the death penalty, and they instead seek life without parole if convicted. And in late September, around the 24th, 26th, is when jury selection actually begins. How long do you think jury selection goes for?
3 weeks?
It ends in November. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Isn't that insane?
It's June?
It's September.
Okay.
Late September.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
But still
So it's
shocking.
over a month, almost 2 months.
Okay. How many people do they call?
257 or something like that.
Get called? Okay.
Yeah, get called. In hindsight, there's a lot. You've probably already like sniped out what some of the prosecution's mistakes were in all of this setup. But this is also considered to be one of the mistakes, not pursuing the death penalty. If they had done this, they would have had a quote unquote death qualified jury, which in capital cases, potential jurors are screened to exclude anyone who would under no circumstances consider the death penalty or penalty of life without parole. Technically, a death qualified jury is different from a life without parole qualified jury, but they're kind of considered the same.
So a death qualified jury is one that's more comfortable with the most extreme form of punishment.
Yeah, and so because they didn't go for the death penalty, they now don't have a death qualified jury. Typically, a death qualified jury, women and people of color are disproportionately excluded. Sure. So even though technically another one of their quote unquote mistakes, if they were trying to win, would have been to have the trial in Santa Monica, they didn't do that. So now they're in the downtown area that's more diverse. And then they chose not to do the death penalty, which would have excluded more women and more people of color. And so they would have ended up with a more monolithic jury.
They could have been in Santa Monica with a panel of
basically
Republican-donating white men.
Yes.
And the thing is, the evidence you presented so far, as a person who would not qualify for a death-qualified jury, like I am just, we can talk about it in the Patreon too, but like that I mean, obviously I think I mean, you have to say that before you know the details of the case. I really do not think I would ever
I don't think I would either.
So I'm saying this as a person who falls into the category, somewhat at least, of the people that they were
excluding,
or the people that they were trying to bring into the jury, right? Yeah. The evidence is still so overwhelming.
You would think.
Honestly, in some ways, I'm almost proud of our justice system for not trying to like subvert law.
Yes.
Have it to be an actual panel of their peers, right? Understand the like high risk situation of trying a celebrity for
a celebrity of color,
right? A celebrity of color, trying to execute them versus just the like life imprisonment, which I'm sure is something that other like white celebrities in that position would be expecting to receive.
Yeah.
Like in many ways, you're almost glad the justice system's working that way. Even if the motivation isn't necessarily there, but also like you are rooting ultimately for justice.
Right.
But also how we achieve justice.
Yes, exactly.
Complicated stuff so far, girl.
Very complicated. I told you would think it's interesting.
Yeah.
So jury selection begins. Over 250 potential jurors are brought in. They are given a 79-page, 294 questionnaire with questions submitted from both sides. The question topics ranged from domestic violence to interracial marriages and whether they, quote, ever provided a urine sample to be analyzed for any purpose. Still don't know why that was asked. Find that hilarious.
Yes, no.
Have I ever submitted a urine sample? Have you not been drug tested? I've been drug tested.
I don't think I've been drug tested.
Really? Is it t-shirt? That's crazy.
No. I mean, I've taught my entire career in California and Colorado.
The general rule for us is that if your company receives federal funding, you have to get drug tested. But if it's a private company or state operated, you don't need to because they're not
as... I've been fingerprinted loads of times.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think I've ever been drug tested.
Yeah, I have been drug tested, but never for like reasonable cause, but for hiring purposes.
And it's crazy too. It's like, why did I shave off on my hair if I'm not going to get drug tested?
Truly, I've been wondering that.
Good.
You looked so good with it.
You have no idea how to not have hair on my head and to then discover hair in my life is gross.
Yeah.
So to have a partner now who has long hair.
And beautiful hair.
Beautiful hair too. Yeah. It's actually made the horror a little less because it's like, oh, it's just him. and I'm not looking at the color or like the coarse texture. I'm not going forensic science on the hair that I'm discovering.
No, that's fair.
Let's get back to the jury.
Yes, the jury. Yeah. I remember when I was in science class, this was junior year of high school. I was paired with this guy who was just like known to be like the biggest stoner of our class. And we were doing this thing. I was one of those gifted students that teachers paired with students that were struggling.
As I said today in class, guys, when I said this was hard, I meant you were going to struggle with it, not that your dumb classmates were going to ask you questions as you're used to in other classes.
I know who I am. And we were studying under the microscope, like our hair follicles. So we were like pulling out pieces of hair and then analyzing them. And my partner went, I'm trying to get to that place where like if you pluck a hair, like there's so much weed in your system that you get a little high. And I was like,
at the school down the street?
Yes.
At the Institution of Learning, tucked away behind a burnt-out gas station and a Vietnamese Baptist church?
Okay, that Vietnamese Baptist church is where we had some standardized testing. And that gas station was alive when I went there, and we were all warned on day one to not go there.
It is a literal shell of its former self. Colored, be surprised.
It never charged tax and had really good candy.
And then eventually, I'm sure, took out a pretty big insurance claim.
I hope so. I hope so. Good. But imagine like straight edge Maia, who's never had a drink in her life aside from communion wine, hearing about this, and I'm like, okay.
Subtle foreshadowing.
Yeah. I found what I like. And I regret anything negative I've ever said about it. Okay. Some jurors, so they're given this huge, long questionnaire, and some jurors are excluded by the judge for not following explicit rules about media exposure. One potential juror had watched cartoons with their kid, and another had been waking up to a clock radio, and those two jurors got excluded. But like, my question is then, how do you know? Because after those two jurors are excluded, how do you know other people aren't just fucking lying?
Right, exactly. I stopped telling the truth.
I would be lying.
Right.
I don't know. So in research, jury consultants determine that for the defense, Black women are their ideal juror for OJ Simpson.
Okay.
The juror consultant for the prosecution tells the prosecution the same thing, that like the Black woman is your non-ideal juror. However, in previous cases, Marcia Clark, the lead prosecutor, had done really well with Black women. She'd had I don't know why she'd been able to relate to them so well. She is white, I think. And so she did not listen to them and just trusted her gut. And so the jury ends up being selected November 3rd, 1994. It took 2 months, but the jury is selected 4 men, 8 women. 8 of the select jurors are Black, 1 is Hispanic, 1 is white, and 2 are multiracial. And I think that breakdown is 6 Black females.
Say those numbers again. I'm sorry.
So the whole breakdown is 6 Black females, 2 Black males, 1 Hispanic male, 1 white female, 1 mixed female, 1 mixed male.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a great diverse panel, except it's actually now overshot
Yes.
and is unrepresentative again.
Which is also in part because Marsha Clark was like, I do really well with black women.
Right.
And then the defense is trying to get black women
But
on.
also part of me wonders too, like the idea behind a jury is that it is a jury of your peers.
Yeah.
And in some ways, especially when it comes to interacting with law enforcement, like a black woman is going to be far more OJ's peer than like a white woman or a white man is.
Mm-hmm.
But then also at the same time, economically and in
Yes.
terms of life experiences, someone from Brentwood is maybe more of a peer to him than like the same people that shared those overlapping identities.
Yes.
So that's interesting.
That intersectionality is just fascinating.
Yeah. Like I can speak freely. Don't have the ability to book 2 flights within 12 hours of each other.
No.
Even to Chicago.
No.
You know?
No. I would.
Danny, that was for you if you're listening.
Around this time, notably, there's a book that comes out by a woman named Faye Resnick. This book is really controversial. I literally just like did not have the capacity to get into it. The story is already long enough. There's controversy around this book. I think she wrote this book like from Nicole's perspective about Nicole and OJ's relationship.
Okay.
But there's a lot of issues with like
Speaking
her
for
motivations.
someone who's not there to speak for herself.
Yeah,
It's one thing when it's like a family member who does it. It's like I get it, and like you get to own a big
Initially,
part of
when
that
I
memory.
heard this, I thought it was her sister, but it wasn't. So it's a whole thing. You can look into it if you want. It does cause a temporary halt in jury selection, but then jurors were just warned to stay out of bookstores, which again, I would immediately be going into a bookstore. What are you talking about? I don't know. Don't tell me what to do.
These jury instructions can't stop me. I can't read.
But I can read that book. Around this time as well, Judge Lance Ito decides that media is allowed in the courtroom.
Whoa.
Which is nuts and also a pivotal moment for like the 24-hour media coverage and like what the media cares about. And
sure,
there's a bunch of like content and articles and I'm assuming studies on the impact that decision alone.
Are Nicole
made.
and Ron's family asking for it to be public or private?
I don't know. I believe the defense is asking for it to be public. I don't know what the families were. I didn't hear in that documentary from Nicole's family, but Ron's family is there and her sister, I don't know if she just didn't care, but I think her like only motivation was like, we need to get justice.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if she necessarily cared how that happened.
Sure.
Okay. January 11th. So November 3rd, the jury is selected. January 11th is when the jury is sequestered.
So they have Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah, I never fully understood why that delay was there. Maybe it's because the trial wasn't going to start until then, but it just feels like a crazy amount of time where someone's going to get curious and Google something. Like,
or you're going to go home for Christmas or Thanksgiving.
And your family's going to talk about it.
Yeah, who haven't been sequestered.
Yeah.
It's like the actually 2 biggest times of the year that Americans gather together.
Right.
We don't gather together again until Thanksgiving. Like, what are you going to do, 4th of July?
Yeah.
No, I'm going to go to a pool.
And all the sources I saw, like, no one mentions this, like, gap, and it just seems, like, mind-boggling to me. Anyway, January 15th through 16th. Okay, I was going to do more research on this, but I didn't, and I kind of like where it just leads off. Robert Shapiro, who is the lead defense, or was the lead defense before Johnny Cochran takes over, tells the media that he and one of the other defense attorneys, F. Lee Bailey, are no longer speaking to one another.
Oh, okay.
Fucking hysterical.
Just a small little side
also,
drama.
Why would you tell the media that? January 18th is officially when Johnny Cochran becomes the lead counsel for the defense. And then Judge Ito also rules in like a pretrial hearing that the jury can hear evidence of OJ's alleged domestic abuse towards Nicole, which is going to be a huge part, I think, of the prosecution's argument.
Okay.
Do you have any questions so far?
No.
Okay. Excellent. We're going to talk about the defense. So we're not even getting into the trial. We're literally just going to talk about what they're doing during all this time, what kind of strategies they're planning, what their argument is going to be, okay? So their main goal is going to be to call into question the validity of the evidence, because the evidence is all the shit that's linking OJ to the scene of the crime, right? So if you can start poking holes in the validity of that evidence, then that can lead the jury to be like, well, maybe this wasn't true. Maybe OJ wasn't there when the prosecution says he was. And they want to do this by calling into question the like character of some of the detectives that were there on scene, like the LAPD, just leaning into that racial tension between the LAPD and the Black community. The one person that I think everyone kind of finds stuff on immediately is Mark Fuhrman.
Okay.
He's the guy that, if you'll remember at the very beginning, reported to a scene where Nicole chose not to file a report, and his response was, "It's your life."
Funeral, yeah.
Yeah. And so a little history on Mark. He had previously been in the Marines from 1970 to 1975 and spent time in Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
Trigger warning, there's just going to be some mentions of it's just like racist. It's just fucking racist. So there's documentation that he spoke with a psychiatrist saying that he stopped enjoying military service because, quote, there were these Mexicans and, not using the right word, but Black people, volunteers, and they would tell me that they weren't going to do something. I don't even know what the fuck that means, but why the fuck do you say it like that?
He's not enjoying the Marines?
He's not enjoying the Marines because Black people and Mexicans are telling him that they're not going to do something.
Like, I'm going to actually pause on my reflections on the Vietnam War. Continue.
There you go. So he leaves the Marines and almost immediately goes to the LAPD. Seems great.
Always trust those pipelines.
No comments there. That sounds like a good
Was
alternative.
ICE not hiring at the time? Oh, it didn't exist because ICE is younger than Maia.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
Made during the Bush administration.
I hate it here.
Correct.
So he joins the LAPD. Initially, he's doing great. He finishes second in his class. He gets high personnel ratings. Everyone seems to think he has great potential for the LAPD. In 1977, he's assigned to East LA, and his evals begin showing some changes. For one thing, he was fixated on trying to make, quote unquote, the big arrest, which I feel like you see a lot of in like cop shows of like cops being like, I want to do the like big
Just
crime.
trying to get to the big root of it all.
From a psychologist, Dr. Kogler, Koegler. I'm going to let you read this.
From psychologist Dr. Kogler. After a while, he began to dislike this work, especially the, quote, low-class people he was dealing with. He bragged about violence he used in subduing suspects, including chokeholds, and said he would break their hands or faces or arms or legs if necessary. He was getting into fights all the time, and 1 year he got into 25 altercations while on the job. Quote, that job has damaged me mentally. I can't even go anywhere without a gun. I have this urge to kill people that upset me. Okay, so that's really tough because I thought I was cheering for Detective Mark earlier in this story.
So here's the thing is that Mark Fuhrman is interviewed in this documentary.
Okay.
And it's not that he takes accountability for his actions, but he does acknowledge his legacy. And like, I think he was the wrong person who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think he has a lot of truly awful biases, but in just hearing him talk about it, I don't know that he is like intentionally malicious because it's clear it upset him.
I also,
it's hard.
Not to provide air cover for a person who was
Who's
proud
racist.
for assaulting minorities and people of color, but he's also brought up more so, I think, than even we could appreciate today as people in our age demographic of a time where U.S. foreign policy is deeply rooted in racist assumptions about these other countries, where he is then sent actively to do the physical manual labor of oppression that racism requires. And it doesn't fit into like the picture he's been given. Yeah. And instead of de-radicalizing him, it radicalizes him further, which isn't necessarily a surprise if you consider the horrors of war he was maybe exposed to. Yeah. And so a person like that in those situations developing into this isn't a surprise. And at the same time, if I'm a black person in LA, that's the last person I want policing my community. And he is going to create cycles of violence in my community that will impact me and others that will then foster its own generational trauma. Exactly. Yeah. And it's like I can feel sympathy for the position you're in and also expect accountability for the situation you've created.
And also be incredibly angry at the system he was working in that didn't.
Right. The same system that victimized him is the
Yes.
same system that is victimizing working class people and
Through
people
him.
of color.
Yeah.
Right. That use both a victim and instrument of that.
Here is where I get really mad. In the early 80s, again, not trying to justify Mark at all, because what he says is awful. What he likely does and is unrecorded is awful. But here's what he did. In the early 80s, Mark tried to leave the force. There's a journalist named Jeffrey Toobin, I believe, for The New Yorker. He says, quote, "At the time, his lawyers asserted that in the course of his work, he, quote, sustained seriously disabling psychiatric symptomology, and as a result, he should receive a disability pension from the city." That he's literally saying, I'm too racist to do this job. I have these violent urges that don't feel like it's in line with what the LAPD wants me to do. And anyway, he ends up in a legal battle with the city over this, and Mark submitted detailed psychiatric evals, which are all part of public record. According to Mark's submittals, he is a dangerous and unbalanced man, and that's why he should receive disability and pension from the city and not be an LAPD officer. The city's response is that he's a competent officer. He's simply engaged in an elaborate ruse to get a pension. Which, may be true. But also now you have all this fucking evidence that this man is a fucking problem and you're not doing anything about it.
Also, how are we feeling good about, you are telling us you are violent and unable to control those violent tendencies around the community that you're policing?
Yeah.
Let's send you back out there because we think you're just trying to defraud a pension program that you're probably not even fully vested in.
Yeah. And so he loses the case and is kept on the force.
Good.
And I mean, as someone who was in the Marines, I don't know if he even knows what he can do outside of the force, you know, so it's a whole other problem. So anyway, the defense finds all of this out. So now they're going to argue. Remember, Mark is also one of the first detectives. He is the first detective on the site. He is the only detective present when he initially found one of the gloves. They're going to argue Mark planted that glove at OJ's mansion and that he initially saw both gloves at Nicole's place, took one, and then planted it at OJ's. Remember, he was the first detective on scene. He was not the first officer on scene. So that does get a little bit complicated of a theory when you think about who actually was on site at that moment.
And it's a violation completely of what the detective would do. And the coroner being there would not have changed procedures for the detective.
No, not at all.
Okay.
So now we're going to talk about the prosecution. They have a really tough job here. There is a fuck ton of evidence against OJ. But they have to convince the jury that this man that they more than likely know and have grown up watching and grown up loving and likely have some kind of parasocial relationship with is capable of committing a double homicide. So that's a huge, almost cognitive dissonance moment of trying to get them to see this other side of this person.
Yeah, and with the evidence that's presented, a violent double homicide.
Very violent.
Not a drunk driving, ran a red light double homicide. Yeah. A violent, personal crime of passion homicide.
There is blood everywhere.
Yeah.
The biggest piece of evidence that they don't have, despite the growing mountain of evidence that they do have, is the murder weapon.
You mean the one that he threw away at LAX?
Exactly. Okay. But they don't interview that guy on trial, so whatever. Ron Shipp, the police officer that was friends with OJ, that OJ was like, I have nightmares of killing my wife. Anyway, goodbye. Ron Shipp agrees to testify against OJ. Ron had been called in by Christopher Darden, the black attorney that gets brought in by the DA. And before Chris could even try to convince Ron sees some of the crime photos that I showed you. And Chris doesn't even have to say anything. And Ron is like, I'll do it. Because he says, quote, she was chopped up. Yeah. So remember, there's over an hour where OJ's whereabouts are unknown. From the time that Cato sees him outside after they go to McDonald's, which is 9:40-ish, to the time when Alan Park sees him theoretically entering his house around 10:50. And no matter when or what route they take, the detectives find that it's a maximum of 4.5 minutes driving from Nicole's to OJ's house. This is a quote from Christopher. Quote, as prosecutors, we had rules and ethics and standards of conduct. We weren't supposed to get our hands dirty. Clearly, those are rules that should not have applied in this case because this was a dogfight. So they also have a really tough decision. if you were in their shoes, would you call Mark Fuhrman to the stand, knowing that the defense is going to attack his character?
I think so, yes, because Mark Fuhrman being like, there is a trail of blood into OJ's house isn't like a character statement. I was actually thinking about this earlier. Let's say Mark Fuhrman does take one of the gloves and plants it in between the two bungalows, which may be a little odd, especially since the gloves aren't a murder weapon, but okay. And also, like, they have found a fingerprint at this scene, and it's a bloody one. So again, like, they don't need the glove necessarily. The blood in your car into your home, that's the whole case.
Right?
That's, in debate, we would call that's the link chain.
Yeah.
Like, that is what carries the, like, claim to the impact.
Literally what carried OJ from his car to his house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing is, a detective being like, there is a literal trail of blood into that house. I am a racist who believes aliens control the world, and
politicians are lizards.
Correct. But I can tell you for a fact, I saw the trail of blood going in.
Yes. And there's also at least one other detective that saw the same trail he did, and 3 other detectives that theoretically should have seen the same stuff that he did. So they knew what kind of arguments the defense was planning of calling into question Mark Fuhrman and any evidence that he found. And they also know that the defense, they think, has some evidence of Mark Fuhrman using the N-word in a derogatory way that they're going to be bringing in.
And the tough thing, too, as I think about it more and more, it's like, I'm not trying to necessarily present evidence. I'm trying to present evidence that this jury that we've paneled will be open to.
Yeah.
And do I call into question his credibility with that jury? Because, you know, of course I'm thinking about this as a white man. Like, to call that out. Like, of course I'm thinking about this like as a white man. But it's like, here's this evidence, this detective saying for a person who shares an identity mark with you that he clearly has a bias against. Do you believe the evidence?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they also recognize that if they don't call him, if the prosecution doesn't call him, the defense will. And then the defense is going to point out very specifically to the jury, look what they were hiding.
Right.
They didn't want you to see this.
Right.
And so they're in a really tough position.
Also tough for the prosecution, because which LA law enforcement agent that is white are you not going to be able to dig up racial epithets for? These are, unless they started their career that day, these are people who came up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Not at all excusing the behavior. But it's the lack of any consequence up until even kind of today, but especially back then. It's like, there is going to be evidence.
So there's a lot of quotes here. The first quote that I'm going to have you read, this is all, I think this happens in trial, but this is without the presence of the jury. This is before the prosecution officially calls Mark Fuhrman to the stand, and they have a discussion about what they can talk about, what they can question Mark Fuhrman on and present to the jury. And they're specifically talking about Mark Fuhrman using the N-word.
Okay.
And so you're going to hear from Chris first, who is the prosecution, and then you'll hear from Johnny, who is...
And they're talking to the judge?
They're talking to the judge, yep.
Detective Fuhrman is going to play a very, very small role in this case. This wasn't his case. He was not the investigating officer or the lead investigating officer in this case. He just happened to find a glove. And now when the man is called to the witness stand, we're going to go back 15 years and ask him if he ever made a racial slur. It is a dirty, filthy word. It blinds people. It'll blind the jury. It'll blind them to the truth. We can't win no matter what, because now we're trying a race case. We're not trying OJ Simpson, and we're not trying the issue of whether he killed 2 people on Bundy. And then in the doc, Chris says, quote, where they're arguing, questioning whether or not Fuhrman's use of the epithet is legally relevant in front of the judge.
Yeah.
And so then Johnny Cochran, arguing to the judge, says, Darden's remarks this morning are perhaps the most incredible remarks I've heard in the court of law in the 32 years I've been practicing law. His remarks are demeaning to African Americans as a group. And so I want to apologize to the African Americans across this country. Nobody wants to introduce race into this case, Your Honor. But as Mr. Darden has pointed out, race plays a part of everything in America. I'm ashamed that Mr. Darda would allow himself to become an apologist for this man. Wow.
And so it's allowed.
Listen, that statement by Johnny Cochran is so fascinating from a communication linguistics perspective, because it's not at all about like the way the racial epithet impacts the truth of the evidence before him. Because that's not where he wants to try to argue and win on. He wants to talk about how the racial epithet is evidence.
Yes.
They are essentially trying to create their own evidence in the case and get it introduced.
Yeah. Carl Douglas, one of the lawyers under him who's interviewed in the doc, Johnny Cochran passes away in 2005. So he's kind of represented in this documentary by Carl Douglas. And Carl Douglas says he was incredible to watch because he was pissed at this point. He was so mad that Darden would say this.
Right.
And something about Johnny is that the more mad he gets, the more eloquent he gets. And it was like, and then you hear that clip and you're like, well.
And also, I mean, the issue with Cochran is he's kind of this like perfect villain in the sense that like he is ultimately advocating for a position that you, I, and most listeners who are concerned about the violent crime that got committed, we want to see that get prosecuted. And Cochran's standing in the way of that. But two things Cochran's doing well that we need to be grateful for. First, OJ Simpson and every person deserves a defense. They deserve a really good defense. That is the purpose of this justice system, and it should be applied equally. So Cochran is doing that role perfectly. But then second, Cochran is pointing out what's important and doesn't get acknowledged enough without more people of color, more people from diverse communities in these positions of power, which is that, of course, race plays a part
to it.
Like, of course, race plays a part.
No one's colorless or colorblind when it comes to any of this.
Correct.
You know?
The fact even truly that, like, the prosecution needs to convince them that a movie star would commit violence is unique in this case, because if OJ Simpson was a white guy, you have to convince them that they're capable of committing the violence at all.
Yes.
And instead it's this famous person isn't capable of committing violence, which is, of course, like a different perspective, and it's tainted by race.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the trial officially kicks off end of January 1995. The prosecution begins with Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden's opening statements. Christopher opens, and one of his quotes is, "He killed her out of jealousy. He killed her because he couldn't have her." This is the first time that the juror sees Christopher Darden in replacement for the white person that he replaced. And so Yolanda Crawford, who is a juror, remembers wondering why they brought him on, and she like almost immediately concluded, well, they must be playing race. So that's not a good look immediately. Johnny Cochran's opening statements, here are some quotes. He says, quote, "Why did Mr. Darden spend all of that time on domestic violence if this is a murder case? My client is not charged with any domestic violence, at least in the scope of this case." And then he goes on to say, quote, "This case is about a rush to judgment, an obsession to win at any cost and by any means necessary," which is echoed in a statement made by F. Lee Bailey. I don't know when he makes this, but F. Lee Bailey is like, "I'd be willing to do anything for my clients. Anything." And it's just like...
And that's a defense attorney.
That's the one who represented Patty Hearst.
And the tough thing is, like, this trial is rushed. The arrest warrant went out pretty quickly. But because there was like quite a bit of evidence there, right?
A lot of evidence.
Correlation is not causation in this case, right? Like, they didn't need to explore other witnesses because there's a trail of the victim's blood into OJ's
leading
house.
to OJ's house, yeah. Around the time that the trial started, OJ releases a book called "I Want to Tell You: My Responses to Your Letters, Your Messages, Your Questions." And it's just him talking. It's like a journal of him talking while they prepare for the trial. And it's interspersed with letters that he had been sent from fans and his responses to them. Apparently there were like over 300,000 letters sent to him during this time. So that's part of it.
A, they rushed that book out quickly. B, what an incredible humanizing campaign.
Yes.
I want to tell you OJ Simpson's responses to your letters and such. Wow.
Yeah. February 1st. So very early on in the case, Ron Shipp, his friend, the ex-LAPD officer, takes the stand. He testifies about the abuse that Nicole had told him about in 1989 and about how OJ had told Ron that he had dreams of killing Nicole. On cross-defense, OJ was telling the defense what questions to ask. You can see it. You could see like the lawyer go back and OJ whispers in his ear and then the lawyer asks the question. And basically the lawyer is trying to discredit the friendship Ron and OJ had, saying like, well, were you ever invited to this place? Did you ever invite OJ to this place? Did you do this together? And all this stuff, trying to like separate them more.
There's a difficult thing where if you knew all of this, why'd he stay friends with OJ?
Yes.
So it's either A, you weren't close friends with him, or B, you were and it's not a huge concern. But either way, it's damning to you.
Yes.
Damned if you do, damned if you're
if you
not.
don't. Yep. Yeah. And so they try and ruin his credibility as a friend to OJ, as a police officer. Apparently he would drink sometimes. And so they were like, well, do you remember all the things when you drink? And you like, not necessarily things that are relevant, but things that call into question maybe their memory. And there's also a quote from someone else entirely they said that Ron would have a shot at Nicole if OJ weren't around. And it's so objections were made during all of that, but none of them were sustained. And so the testimony went into evidence. Ron is interviewed in the documentary. This documentary that I'm referencing a lot came out in 2025, so it's relatively recent. He is still facing the consequences of coming out against OJ. Remember, he's a black man. And he says that there are still black people who won't talk to him for, quote, going against their race. So, yeah. Nicole's sister-in-law, Denise Brown, will take the stand and give testimony about OJ abusing Nicole. I'm going to talk a little bit more about domestic abuse. If you don't want to hear it, skip forward maybe a minute or so. There is one particular incident where I think they were at a dinner or something. OJ did something that kind of upset Denise, and Denise went to OJ and told him like, hey, you're taking my sister-in-law for granted. In response, OJ picked up Nicole and threw her against the wall. And she also testified that OJ used to verbally abuse Nicole whenever she was pregnant with either of their two kids and called her a fat pig.
While she was pregnant.
Yeah. And there was, I don't remember how many pounds she gained when she was pregnant, but it was still like less than normal people gain. And It's just like, okay. A 911 operator testifies about a call that they received from Nicole on about an ongoing assault by OJ Simpson on October 25th, 1993. OJ had broken into her house and was ranting and raving in the front yard, like accusing her of maybe sleeping with someone else. Remember, they're divorced by this point. The dispatcher can hear OJ yelling about someone named Keith in the background. There's a transcript of this linked in my show notes if you want to read it. LAPD officer John Edwards is also brought to the stand. He gets a call around 3:30 in the morning on January 1st of 1989. In the 911 call, you can hear Nicole being beaten and screaming in the background. When John arrives to the scene, Nicole came running out of the house saying, he's going to kill me, he's going to kill me. And when John asks her who, she says OJ. So it's just a mountain of evidence about domestic violence, which again is not necessarily what OJ is on trial for, but you can see how one thing leads to the other.
And also, if you are trying to point out that OJ is capable of being violent, this is pertinent to he is violent.
Yes, he's violent. Overall, Nicole had called 911 about 8 times during their marriage. OJ had been prosecuted and, as I mentioned, pled, I think, non-contest or guilty for domestic violence. Just because they have records of Nicole calling 8 times does not mean Nicole only called 8 times. And some of the prosecution believe that there's a high chance she called more than that. The LA County Chief Medical Examiner, I'll try and pronounce his name, but it's not going to be right. I'm pretty sure South Asian, and there's so many letters. So it's Dr. Lark Shemanan Satyavad Geswaran. I'm going to call him Dr. S.
Okay.
He analyzes the wounds and the crime scene and explains how OJ could have committed all of this violence by himself in a relatively short amount of time. Because the brutality of the killing suggests a crime of passion, it suggested that OJ attacked Nicole and then he went to hide when he heard Ron coming up. There's evidence that Ron potentially cradled Nicole's head in his lap. And that's when OJ maybe came out of the bushes, attacked Ron, and then Nicole starts moving again, and that's when he slits her throat. Yeah. Isn't that awful?
That's so much worse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we played out scenarios earlier in this episode.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God. Just the terror for both of them. Like, you hope almost in those moments that it's quick.
Yeah.
But, oh.
And imagine her terror when he comes to her house after all of these incidents, after they've been divorced, of him just like breaking into her house and screaming at her and abusing her. And now he's at her house again. Like, you don't know what she did or said, but like, it's all reasonable. She's terrified, and the police aren't doing fucking anything about it. I mean, she chose not to file a report that one time, but it's like, come on. Phil Van Adder and Tom Lang take the stand mid-February. On cross-examination, this is where the defense begins really planting their seeds of doubt for the jury that the LAPD really did due diligence. They start questioning if any other suspects were looked into. They start really clearly suggesting that they honed in on OJ and also were incompetent. They prove that these two detectives did not investigate any relationships that Ron may have had that could have done this. They have zero evidence for any of this. Ron's family is sitting in the courtroom, but the defense is like, well, do you know if Ron did any drugs? He didn't, but like, you don't know that because you didn't look into it. Like, did he do any drugs? And so they're like asking all these questions about Ron and his background that they have no idea about because they just never looked into it. And remember, the defense's job is just to sow reasonable doubt. They don't need to prove anything. So they suggest that Ron was like a druggie involved in the world of crime and that maybe the murderer was trying to do a Colombian necktie. Trigger warning if you don't want to hear what a Colombian necktie is. Skip forward like 30 seconds. I mentioned this throat slitting. A Colombian necktie is they'll slit the throat and then pull the tongue through the throat. Yep, that's it. Beginning of March, Detective Mark Furman his cross-examination starts. I believe he was on the stand starting like March 9th or something, and now he's on cross as of March 13th. Okay. F. Lee Bailey is known for having an incredibly strong cross-examination. And he's the one that was like, I want this guy. Give me this guy. He had developed a cross-examination that he called the Furman funeral. Prior to this, during the regular examination, the jury seemed to be taking Mark at his word and trusting what he was saying and what his experience was at the crime scene. On cross-examination, F. Lee Bailey forces him to deny being racist, and he also has to deny the defense's theory that he tampered with evidence. They really hammer home the fact that Mark was alone when he finds the second glove. They're like doing a lot of implications here in the questioning. The defense had a plan already when it was their turn to call witnesses, to call several witnesses to refute the things that Mark Furman was about to say. So their plan was to be like, are you racist? And Mark Furman would say no. And there would be like, have you ever used the N-word in the last decade? And Mark Furman would say no. And one specific quote was, did you say while in a recruiting station at any time during those years that when you see a N-word driving with a white woman, you pull them over? Mark says no. You can see where this is going. Mm-hmm. They're already planning to completely discredit this man. And so Chris Darden, the prosecution, says that he wishes Mark had been honest. He says something along the lines of like, I could defend the Klansmen, I guess, if they admit that they're a Klansman. Like, you can be racist, but acknowledge your own faults and your own racism. And Mark says in the documentary, well, I had to deny that because I knew I was going to get fired if I said yes. So Cato takes the stand. He recounts the evening, testifies again about like where he was at the time of the crimes, and then about some of the abuse that he like heard about or thought he was hearing from Nicole. Then criminalist Dennis Fung takes the stand. He's the one taking all the evidence. This is where it's uncovered that proper protocols around collecting evidence were not religiously followed during the processing of either crime scene. First of all, the blanket that was laid on Nicole's body is brought into question because, of course, OJ's body could have been on that blanket and DNA transfer happens very easily. Dennis is then asked, did you touch anything without gloves? And he says no. And they're like, are you sure about that? And he says yes. And then they have like a video from someone in the media of him touching the envelope that had the glasses in it without any gloves. And one by one, Barry, who is one of the DNA experts on the defense team, pokes holes in all the DNA evidence that was collected from any scene. There's an issue of a blood stain, one of the bigger blood stains that was found like by the gate or on the gate. And it's
at the Bundy house. Yeah.
At the Bundy house, yeah. Okay. It's photographed on June 13th and then again on July 3rd. When comparing the two photos, granted, the first one, June 13th, seemed to be a lot blurrier. I don't know. The blood stain does not seem to be present in the July 13th photo, but it is June 13th photo, and it is very evident in the July 3rd photo. And notably, the second photo, the July 3rd photo that has the blood very present, was taken after OJ had given his blood to the police as a sample. There's then a chemical that's used in test tubes for like blood samples called EDTA. It's a preservative. And this particular blood stain on the gate had the second highest amount of EDTA out of all of the blood stains that taken samples of. EDTA is also present in other things. Like someone said it was maybe present in paint. It's present in detergents. It is present in small quantities, like naturally in the human blood. So, I mean, like, okay.
Are they suggesting that they poured some of it out of the test tube and onto the gate?
That they were trying to frame him. Yeah.
Okay.
The blood sample had been obtained by Phil Van Adder from OJ downtown at questioning. And then for fucking some stupid ass reason, because these men are so dumb, he drove the blood sample from the station that he was at back up to the crime scene to give to Dennis Fung. And Dennis Fung is on the trial saying, like, no, that's not how that should have been done. It should have just been booked into evidence at the station. And so now there's this whole thing of like, well, Dennis Fung had the blood.
Had the blood brought to him to frame OJ.
Yeah. And so the blood is also found on the socks at Rockingham in the primary suite. And that sample had the most EDTA out of any sample that they had pulled. Regardless of if the DNA was planted, it is understandable to believe from the jury's perspective that now this evidence is questionable. Mid-June-ish is when Christopher Darden shows evidence that OJ had similar, if not the same, gloves to the ones found at the scene of the crime. They have pictures of him in a bunch of leather gloves. Chris also does potentially the biggest mistake in hindsight that the prosecution has made during the entire course of this. He makes OJ try on the gloves. OJ tries to put them on, and he's a big guy. And he's not able to get them on easily and claims that they're too tight. They don't totally fit on his hands. Mike, OJ's agent, found out that they're going to make him try on the gloves, and he said, well, don't take your arthritis medication.
Mm-hmm.
It'll make your knuckles swell up, and so it won't fit. On top of this, they also asked him to wear latex gloves under the leather gloves because it's a biohazard. And so that's another thing that this isn't a controlled experiment now. Right. Like, you're adding all of this different stuff. And I mean, OJ should have taken his fucking arthritis medicine, the fucking psycho. And it's also likely that the leather gloves shrank after not being worn for such a long period of time and being covered in something like a damp substance for that long.
Right.
But either way, regardless, OJ is nothing if not charming, and he, for some reason, is allowed to talk to the jury while he's, like, trying to put on these gloves. He's, like, making a whole show of it. And, I mean, a lot of people think that this is it. This was it for the jury. That's a photo of OJ trying on the gloves in front of the jury.
I mean, they fit, though.
They fit.
Is also the thing.
It did take, like, a really long time for him to get them on, and I think that's where they're saying it doesn't fit. But, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that prosecution right behind him, bottom right, or is that Johnny Cochran?
That's Christopher Darden.
Okay.
Yeah. Early July, after 300 hours of testimony and a ton of witnesses, the prosecution finally rests. August 29th, 1995, you remember that the defense was going to bring in witnesses that refuted Mark Fuhrman saying he was not racist, had never used the N-word. Even better, an anonymous source tipped the defense off that there are potentially tapes of Mark Fuhrman from 1987 saying racial slurs and bragging about his enforcement of police brutality.
Wow.
It was one of Mark's friends who was putting together a screenplay and had recorded their conversation where he was trying to help inform her about what it was like working as a cop. And he repeatedly used the N-word. He also said, quote, "This job is not rules. This is a feeling. Fuck the rules. We'll make them up later." I'm not going to read all the quotes, but here's one. He said, quote, "Leave that old station, Ed. It's got the smell of, N-word, that have been beaten and killed there for years." He also says anything out of a black person's mouth for the first 5 to 6 sentences is a lie. He jokes about how hard it is to find bruises on their skin. He says he likes to use them to practice kicking. He brags about violence.
Oh my God.
Yeah, awful. Awful.
Oh my God.
When he's asked about this on the document.
Which is different than like a police officer who, is it? As I'm like thinking out loud, like the depths of his racism, it gets deeper and deeper every time you say something.
Exactly.
And you're like, well, like, no, that's not good. And that is
it's
racial
bad.
bias.
Yes.
And that's, and then you're like, well, that's not good, but it's racial bias. And then you're like, you're violently, joyfully disparaging black people.
Yes. And unfortunately, it can be true that this man is fucking awful.
Right.
But still didn't plant evidence.
Right.
But that doesn't matter. Because now you don't trust this guy. You can't trust that he says he didn't plant it and he's the only one there.
Right.
So when he's interviewed in the documentary, he says that the situations he was describing in those tapes were not true. They were dramatizations of situations for the sake of the screenplay writing. I think that's all bullshit. But I'm not saying, like, he doesn't apologize for saying any of it, but I don't know that the documentary crew ever, like, asked for that.
Yeah.
He's also not denying that he did any of that. I mean, he literally can't.
Right.
And he's saying, like, yeah, it sucks. Like, I can't refute it if someone calls me a racist.
Right.
And it's really hard to, because he's earnest, but it's like, you're a piece of fucking shit.
Right, right.
When they got these tapes initially, it was hours and hours. All of this is entered into evidence. But Judge Ito then had to decide what parts of it would be allowed to be presented to the jury. And he eventually rules that of the clips or whatever, the jury would be allowed to hear 2.
Okay.
Johnny Cochran is fucking pissed off that it's only 2. And he's now pissed off at Judge Ito, who, by the way, is an Asian man. But, like, whatever. Ron Goldman's father says, quote, "Johnny suggests that racism ought to be the most important thing that any one of us ought to listen to in this court." And then later continues, quote, "We came to this court 7 months ago expecting a fair trial. My son had a right to it. This is now the Furman trial. It's not the trial of OJ Simpson, who was accused of murdering my son and Nicole." So September 6th, Mark Furman is called back to the stand.
September 6th now.
Yes.
Okay.
To like address lying on the stand. And this time he has a personal attorney with him. And I guess he claims that he tried to get in touch with the prosecution multiple times before reappearing, and no one ever got back to him. He specifically says he tried to contact Marcia, who would not respond. Christopher Darden says that he personally never heard from Mark Furman, so I don't know what the truth is. But Mark Furman has to take the stand. He has had no conversation with the prosecution. He now has his own personal attorney. And basically they ask him questions and he turns to his attorney every time. And every time he says, "I plead the fifth," which is not a good fucking look, especially when the questions are things like, have you ever lied on a police report? Or have you ever planted or manufactured evidence? So another thing that doesn't technically say anything because the Fifth Amendment is protecting him, but it feels like an admission of guilt.
Especially in a jury where you're trying to win kind of a popular vote.
Yes. So after that, Mark kind of immediately retires. He's scared that he's going to get fired and that it's going to affect his pension, and he wants to still be able to collect that, so he just gets out of there. The defense also puts Henry Lee on the stand, a forensic expert, who establishes plausible justification to question the prosecution's key physical evidence. I don't have a ton of details about this testimony, but the way it was worded in one of the news articles is that he gave the jury permission to question all of this stuff without feeling like they're, I don't know, being immoral.
Sure.
You know, OJ does not testify, but he does like address the court and basically says like, I'm not going to testify because I want to be mindful of the mood and stamina of the jury. So it's painted as like this, like,
I'm looking out for you guys. You've been in this for over a year.
I'm doing this for you. And he also like brings in his kids, and it feels like he's basically testifying without actually having to answer anyone.
The kids whose mother he has murdered.
Yes. Yeah. End of September of 1995, the defense closes one day after the prosecution closes, and that's when Johnny Cochran delivers his famous phrase, "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." Chris Darden was initially not going to be allowed to make a closing statement because of what he did with the gloves. They thought it was his fault, which, I mean, it was, I guess, but he felt like he was being sidelined like a child, and so he submitted his resignation, and the DA is like, okay, you can make a closing statement. He still resigns, but the case was over 133 days with 150 witnesses and $15 million to try.
Jeez.
The verdict. It's a general rule of thumb that for every week of trial, there will be 1 day of jury deliberation.
Okay.
So they're thinking it's going to be a fucking long jury deliberation, at least 3 weeks. And so everyone kind of just like fucking scatters to the wind. Like OJ's defense team is from all over. Like they have people from New York, people from Florida, people from all over. And like OJ's agent is like going to take a trip to Maui. There's another guy that's going to take a trip up to Napa Valley. On October 3rd, 1995, the first straw vote is taken within the jury. There is one woman that is on the documentary talking about what happened behind closed doors. This first straw vote was 10-2. And so they start reviewing...
To acquit or to find guilty?
10-2 to acquit.
Okay.
They start reviewing evidence, and then they take another straw vote after 3 to 4 hours, and it's unanimous to acquit. And so they tell the judge that they have a verdict.
On day 3?
After 4 hours.
What?
I
don't know where I got day 3 from.
4 hours.
Into deliberation over a year-long trial.
133 days. It's like 7 months or something, but yeah. It starts in January, or towards the end of January, and now it's end of September.
Which they had started jury selection in early September.
Yeah. So after 4 hours, they're unanimous. They find him not guilty on both counts. Obviously, I think they finished deliberations kind of late, and so they announced to everyone that they're going to read the verdict the following morning. And so the following morning at 10 a.m.,
people are like rushing back to LA.
It's read on live television. 91% of all persons viewing television were glued to the unfolding scene in that courtroom.
Yeah, I bet they were.
Due to the aftermath of the Rodney King riots, the police are preparing for the worst. There's like police in riot gear. There's like the mounted police that are by the like courthouse. People are everywhere. Like people are at bars and like gathering with family, especially in the Black community. They're like they're preparing for the worst potentially. Yeah. And so, I mean, it ends up being fine though, because he's acquitted,
right,
and
he's found not guilty.
They all start cheering, and it's great. And so remember, there's just so many mistakes by the prosecution, and like the defense just did a really fucking good job.
Yeah.
Basically, the first mistake was mistake, quote unquote, is not filing in Santa Monica. Poll data showed at the time that most white people believed OJ to be guilty, while most Black people believed him to be innocent, which makes sense for the racial tension of the area at the time.
And there is one white person on the jury?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Another mistake was Chris asking OJ to try on the gloves, because that's evidence right in front of their faces that they think these gloves don't fit, or it doesn't make sense for him to be taking them on and off or whatever. Right. The other mistake is not bringing in Jill or Skip, those two witnesses that had eye accounts of seeing OJ do sketchy ass shit. Immediately after the verdict, the entire defense team kind of goes, I think, to OJ's to like celebrate, except for Robert Shapiro, the initial lead detective that gets replaced by Johnny Cochran. He goes on Barbara Walters and says he believed that race should not have been a part of this. Like immediately, almost like he's like bitter that he got shouldered out.
So is he saying the defense did it wrong, or that they shouldn't view the defense's strategy as one based around race?
He's saying that he wishes the defense had argued without bringing race into it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I do think, even if I do find OJ guilty,
I think
that
race is necessary.
did play a part in it. Yeah.
Even if OJ doesn't feel like he's Black, like people see him as black.
Right. Because he is black.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And the LAPD does have a long history of like racially biased action towards communities of color and of forging or manufacturing evidence. And those patterns of behavior do need to be criticized. And in some ways, even if Mark didn't tamper with evidence, he shouldn't have been on the force. That person should not have been on the force. And so it shouldn't have been perhaps the major voter in that deliberation, but I think it needed to play some part.
I agree. Robert Shapiro will go on to say that they not only played the race card, but they dealt from the bottom of the deck.
Oof.
Yeah. And I mean, that pisses off the defense team, obviously. And there's 3 quotes here that I'll have you read. One from Johnny, one from a lawyer journalist who covered the case, and one from Mike.
Johnny Cochran, quote, "This stuff about playing a race card is preposterous. It would be malpractice if a man has racist views in a case and a lawyer doesn't pursue that. Anybody who says that doesn't know how to try cases." This is from the journalist. Quote, "Ironically, OJ bent over backwards not to live a black life. Then he became the champion of every black man that had ever been beaten by a cop or insulted by a cop." Next one's from Mike. Mike was the...
Mark, I probably meant.
Okay. Quote, "A lot of people, including a lot of OJ's friends, say OJ didn't want to be black.
Oh, wait, no. Who is this?
He thought of himself as being white."
Mike, he's the agent, the sports agent.
Yeah. His
the friend, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because the subpoint
is that after this, OJ is deserted by a lot of his white friends, his golf buddies, his country club, that kind of thing. So he's lonely. The civil case, because the families of the victims aren't done. On October 23rd, 1996, Ron and Nicole's families sue OJ for damages in the wrongful deaths of their family members. The difference between the criminal and civil case, at least here, because I don't actually truly understand all the probably nuanced differences, but in a civil case, the punishment is monetary instead of jail/prison, where it is in a criminal case. And the burden of proof also not shifts, but changes. In a criminal case, the prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. But in a civil case, it has to prove that it's more likely true than not.
Right.
And so that changes the dynamics of this next case. And also the judge changes the dynamics of the next case. No media was allowed in. The case itself is tried in Santa Monica, so it's a very different pool. There's different evidence that's brought in. OJ also testified, and it's not good.
Okay. Do we have quotes?
It wasn't even worth taking quotes because it was just like, didn't make any sense. Like at one point he's being asked, like, what did you tell this detective? And OJ's like, I don't know if he asked that. And it's like, but I'm asking it now. And he's like, well, you should ask it. And it's just like, it's like nonsensical.
Okay.
And he's not good at taking accountability for domestic violence. Like he's not really willing to say he abused Nicole. He's willing to say like, I hurt Nicole, but like is very specific about that kind of thing. And I don't know who said this, but they said he was contradictory and unconvincing. I want you to know I'm using that in my judge ballots.
Okay, contradictory and unconvincing.
Unconvincing is so funny to me. There's also new evidence brought in. I think like the footprints are specifically brought in, like the matched boot that OJ had to the bloody footprint. It ended up being 41 days of testimony and around 100 witnesses. And on February 4th, 1997, the civil trial jury deliberated for 17 hours, and they find OJ liable for the deaths of Nicole and Ron. And they award $8.5 million in compensatory damages and then $25 million in punitive damages. So I think it's like 33 million to both families. Fred,
split equally, or each family gets that amount?
I think it's split between the two. Okay. Ultimately, it doesn't matter, A, because OJ refuses to pay any of it, and B, because this is a quote from Ron's dad, Fred, says, quote, "The jury decision of last Tuesday was the only decision important to us, to find the killer of my son and Nicole. The money is not an issue. It never has been. It's holding the man who killed my son and Nicole responsible." And Ron's sister will go on to say it was so meaningful to have another party say, this man killed your brother.
Yeah.
So...
to be able to say out loud in public, OJ Simpson killed my brother.
Yeah. OJ's immediate response is, I'm never going to pay that. And apparently the system does not do that kind of collection for you, so you kind of have to do it yourself.
It can't compel you to do that?
Yeah. Oh. Well, so they ended up making him, like, auction off a bunch of stuff. So he does lose his house because of this, but I'm not sure where that lines up in like repaying the state for the cost of the case versus paying the families. After any of that auctioning happens, the families do not see a check from OJ ever. OJ is also able to like hide all of his assets, and as of 2025, they still have not seen a penny.
Is OJ still alive?
No.
Okay.
He passed in 24, something like that, pretty recently. When asked if she ever thought she would see anything, Ron's sister Kim says, quote, "We are never expecting to see it, but if I can make his life miserable in the meantime, hell yeah." Mm-hmm. Yeah. After this, OJ loses, oh God, this pisses me off. OJ loses his Rockingham estate. It's, I think the state like puts a lien against it. He has to auction it off. He also has to auction off some of his other personal assets. One night, Mike, his agent, is with him at the house, and they're just kind of reminiscing because I think everyone has a lot of good memories at this house. If they were friends with OJ, they spent a lot of time there, and he's helping them pack it all up and stuff. And at the end of the night, they're out by the back of the pool, and they're talking, feeling sentimental about the house. OJ mentions that there is a tree close to the pool that the chlorine kept killing, and talks about how himself and Nicole had put thousands of dollars into that tree, and it was still here, but Nicole wasn't. And at some point, Mike just asks outright what happened that night. Like, what happened? And OJ's response, I'm paraphrasing here, but is said, well, what do you think happened? And Mike has this moral dilemma of like, do I do the agent thing and say like, I never think you could have done it or any of that? And he chooses to go like the earnest route. And he says, I always thought you did it. Not because I see you as a murderer, because I don't. I don't know if that phrase was continued or if that's just all he said. But OJ then kind of like looks at him and says, if Nicole hadn't opened the door with a knife, she would still be alive. Mike quit the next day. Mm-hmm. OJ then moves to Florida in 99.
Of course he does.
Allegedly because in Florida, his home and pensions can't be seized for civil liabilities in other states. He flaunts his wealth. He does all the shit like kids in their like early 20s do when they haven't found themselves, like a ton of drugs, flaunting his wealth. He hires sex workers, goes to strip clubs. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for him as like a 50-year-old man. Okay, this part's kind of funny. In 2006, the publication of another book written by OJ Simpson is announced. I don't know I think it was going to be called If I Did It. And it was going to just be like what he would have done if it were the case.
What?
The statute of limitations was up in 2004. Wait. No, it would have been up in 2014. I don't know. But yeah, he's going to publish this book. He agreed initially with the publisher that he would only publish the book if the word "if" was at the front so that he could have like plausible deniability.
So instead
with
of saying
kids.
I did it, it's if I did it.
If I did it. The book is supposed to be a hypothetical for how OJ would have done it. He basically...
Why? Sorry. Why?
Yes.
Who's asking for that?
No one. Literally no one.
And also, you're acting like we're all going to pretend like this isn't just your retelling of how you murdered this woman and this man and got away with it.
He basically admits that the gloves were his.
Of course he does. And of course they were.
Yeah. Following the outrage by the victims' families and the public, the book wasn't published. Rupert Murdoch, of all people, says, I and senior management agree with the American public that this was an ill-considered project. We are sorry for any pain that this has caused the families of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson. And then the agent that specifically was responsible for getting this publication, I think, was let go.
Rupert Murdoch was the person behind the publication? Are you kidding me?
I don't think he specifically, but it was his company. In 2007, a California judge ordered that the rights to the book be sold to the Goldman family. The Goldman family found a publisher and published the book in 2007, and it's OJ's original text now with commentary from the family. And so that in that way, they managed to get all the profits from this book, and OJ saw none of it. I'm going to have you read some of this.
How did they get ownership of the copyright? Like, how did they get ownership of it?
I'm not sure. I didn't get really into it. I think maybe the family sued that it was like their story, or they still are owed civil liability from OJ. About the book, someone says, quote, "This is a historic case, and I consider this his confession." And I'll have you read this bullet.
In the book, Simpson describes angrily confronting Nicole and Ronald Goldman at Nicole's condo on the night of the murder, knife in his hand. Then he writes, quote, "Something went horribly wrong, and I know what happened, but I can't tell you exactly how." He continues, "The whole front of me was covered in blood, but it didn't compute." Interestingly, in Simpson's account of the murder, he describes himself as having been accompanied to the condo by a friend named Charlie, who was shocked by the bloody turn of events. On the way back to Simpson's home, Charlie said, quote, "Jesus Christ, OJ, Jesus Christ," and buried his face in his hands.
Yeah, so what? In 2007 as well, OJ was arrested because he was trying to coordinate a gunpoint assault and robbery of 2 sports memorabilia dealers in Las Vegas, thinking that the things that this sports memorabilia dealer had were legally his, even though those things were not. Some of them had been sold off by Mike, his agent. Some of them maybe were his and then were auctioned off by the state. Like, who knows? The jury convicted him, and he received a 9 to 33-year sentence.
Whoa.
He served at Lovelock Correctional Center near Reno, Nevada. And yeah, that was stuff that was not his. It was stuff Mike had sold to those dealers. He was eligible for parole in 2017, and he was released October 1st, 2017, and then released from parole December 1st of 2021. In 2015, he did not have an easy time in jail. He was slammed against a wall, threatened with death by a white supremacist after OJ cut this guy in line for medication. He had also been threatened by a cellmate who thought OJ owed him protection money. Regardless, he came out of all of this. He started like a social media page, started making a bunch of fucking like reels and TikToks and shit, and then he ended up dying April 10th, 2024 due to prostate cancer.
Wow.
So let's talk last section. Just a percentage of the profits from our show, March 2026, will be donated to the National Center for Victims of Crime, or NCVC, as well as the National Compassion Fund, NCF. Both are nonprofits supported and kind of almost led by Kim Goldman. I think she's on the board. NCVC provides all kinds of support to victims and their families, as well as training and technical assistance for law enforcement, service providers, and community organizations to strengthen trauma-informed and victim-centered responses. They also engage in policy reform and national advocacy. And then NCF was established by NCVC and is a safe and transparent way for the public to donate directly to victims of mass violence. So those links will be in our show notes if you're curious about them at all. After this, Christopher Darden, he had given his resignation, and so he became a defense attorney and ended up starting his own practice. Mark Furman was convicted of lying on the witness stand in 1996, and that is the only criminal conviction from the OJ case.
Of course it is.
He says in the documentary, quote, "In my obituary, they'll say the disgraced racist detective in the OJ Simpson case." And again, he's not like, it doesn't seem like he's trying for pity when he says that. He's just like, this is my reality. This is what I did, and these are the consequences of my actions. He has since made his living writing crime-themed books, which I don't even know what the fuck that means.
Under a ghost name?
I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea. He hosted a radio show in Spokane, Washington, and was also a TV commentator as a forensic and crime scene expert for Fox News. Hey, Fox. No.
Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah.
Rupert Murdoch.
That one, that's like literally, I don't know how you picked the only person that should not be an expert on crime scenes and forensic, whatever. Johnny Cochran died in 2005. Carl Douglas then started his own law firm in LA, and he still stands 10 toes down that the jury got the right conviction. Kim Goldman says, quote, "We are one of millions of people that this happens to, but we have commercialized and sensationalized grief and loss and trauma. And I can't stop that from happening. But if I can do anything I can to try to teach you how to consume it in a way that is still loving and supportive, then that's why I still do this. And if you or anyone you know is a victim of domestic abuse and want info or resources, you can go to wannatalkaboutit.com. And that is the story of OJ Simpson.
I learned a tremendous amount of a case that I think everyone assumes people just know all the information of, because the adults who raised us watched everything live happen. And that means there's just the assumption that we know these details. And I know, I didn't know anything. I'm guessing you didn't before you started researching.
I knew like some of the details of the crime, and I kind of knew that he was acquitted and that it was like a whole joke that the gloves don't fit and stuff. But like,
I mean, I get kind of from John Mulaney.
Yeah, honestly. But like, the complexity of that case is wild. And I was doing some more like just like curiosity research like right before you came over of like what was the effect on the media. And like, I mean, if this had gone differently and if he had been convicted, what would that mean for race relations in the United States today? Because I feel like that could have escalated to a insane boiling point. And I mean, we've reached so many boiling points over the last like several decades that I don't know if it would have done anything different. But and then there's also the whole media fiasco. Like that entire first trial was a performance for the people watching. But then what if they hadn't allowed media in? It would have been even fucking worse, because the white people who thought he was guilty would think that something happened in the trial, and the black people who thought he was innocent would also think something was in the trial, no matter what was the verdict.
And also the only way to chip away at these systems of like racial oppression, of like the police falsifying reports, things like that, is in moments like this, there's a lot of media transparency around what is being shared in this deliberation. And so in that sense, I understand the importance of having this be a televised trial, right? Like the only way to get rid of corruption is through sunlight and transparency. But at the same time, it did sensationalize the death of these two people, whose ultimately their death didn't get a criminal conviction for.
No, which is wild. And even now, as I mentioned, I think the statute of limitations is like 20 years. And so this was tried in 94, 95. So the limitations were up in 2014, 2015. So even at this point, it would be really hard to bring to trial. They would need to find someone
new, right?
They would need to find a new person, a bunch of new evidence. Like, and I mean, OJ is gone, so
right. So many of these people are gone. Although his children have seemed to faded into intentional.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of research into them, mostly because it didn't feel like it was necessary.
Right.
I do know his two kids from the marriage with Nicole. I don't know where Sydney is now. I think she's like 37, and the brother, Justin, is 35. I think Justin, the only thing I saw is that Justin's living in Florida doing something. But that's all I really know.
Wow.
Yeah. Wild, right?
Wild. Well done, girl. I mean, truly, honestly, a fantastic story told.
Thanks. If you're curious, there's like literally... You could be consuming OJ Simpson content for the next like 3 weeks of your life if you wanted to. ESPN, I think, did like an 8-part series that I did not bother to watch because I was like, I don't have time for an 8-part series on this. Are you kidding? The Netflix documentary did a really good job though. But yeah.
Well done.
Thanks.
Does it feel good to have the story now tucked away?
Good to have the next 2 at least recording sessions that I don't
not yours.
Put a story together.
Great. Yeah, great. Also 3, because it goes mine, listener, then mine again.
Oh, wow. So much time to finally answer emails about the merch that I keep telling people I'm gonna do.
Well, friends, thank you for joining us. If you would like to continue to join us, you can find us on social media where we are Well I Laughed. This theme's story is Primetime Crime, and the next one is In the Night. Yeah.
In the Dark.
In the Dark. Thank you. Mm-hmm. In the Dark. So send in listener stories. We'd love to hear anything you have that even verbally is kind of similar to any synonyms to that, those 2 topics. You can submit those stories to our email, willilaughedpod@gmail.com, or there's a form on our website, willilaughed.com. You can find us on Patreon, where we have more stories to share with you all, and then request us on Cameo, so we can wish you all a happy St. Patrick's Day.
Oh,
I think that's all the announcements. Yes,
I zoned out for a second. So
that's all right.
Probably.
Amazing. Well, we'll see you all next time.
Hi, I'm Maia.
I was Grant, and still am.
Word.